While serving in Iraq from 2003 till 2009, U.S. Navy SEAL sniper Chris Kyle accumulated more official than any other sniper in U.S. military history. In his new best-selling autobiography, American Sniper, Mr. Kyle writes about his early career as a professional rodeo rider, the challenges he overcame to become a SEAL, and his experiences in Iraq. Mr. Kyle joins us now live for a one-hour conversation.
What was your reaction at the time to a kill?
I mean, when you're looking at these people, you're not thinking of them more or less as people. They're a target because, you know, most of the time they're there actively engaging, trying to kill your guys. So you're trying to see yourself as a guardian angel to protect the guys on the ground who are in danger, and you just have to dehumanize it and remove yourself from it. Otherwise, you don't want to think about, you know, do they have a family, what's their job, and what have they done, and you're just trying to, in your mind, think, I want this guy to be able to go home, my guy. I want him to safely be able to go home, so I'm going to take out this target to allow him to do that.
Glenn in Freeland, Michigan. You are on with Chris Kyle, American Sniper.
Thank you, gentlemen. My question for Mr. Kyle is, in the wake of the Trayvon Martin case and the shooting at the college in Oakland last week, I think it was, and a zillion other cases like that, Virginia Tech and those kind of cases, what does he think of this kind of hyper-gun culture we have in America, where basically anyone who wants a gun can get one and use it if they like? And specifically, what's his opinion on gun control? Thank you very much. Mr.
Kyle?
I am 100% behind the Second Amendment, the right to own and bear arms. I mean, I'm here in Texas, and that is a big part of the culture here. It's my right to be able to have it, but it's also everybody's responsibility to learn the safeties and learn everything about those weapons. Now, there are certain people that don't deserve the weapons, the people who are going to go out and actually act stupid. Now, as far as the Trayvon Martin thing, I haven't kept up with that, so I can't tell you everything that's going on in there. I haven't heard all the facts, and for the most part, I've heard one side of the story, so I can't comment on that one. All these school shootings, yeah, especially out in California, I know it's difficult to be able to carry a gun. Only a few people are legally going to be able to do that, so I don't know why this guy was doing that, but apparently gun control, though, itself, the only thing it's going to do is take the guns out of the law-abiding citizens. The criminals are still going to have them.
Next call for Chris Kyle comes from Jeff in Aiken, South Carolina, a Navy vet. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Chris, I just want to say I appreciate everything you've done. I served from 2000 to 2006 in Iraq. You know, I really respect snipers. And like, you know, a lot of people maybe don't understand what's going on in your mind and as an individual. If you could just kind of go into that for people and explain to them that, you know, you're not a cold-blooded killer as much as you're doing a job. Thanks, man.
And thank you for your service. Yeah, as far as being a sniper, like I was saying before, I'm not out there trying to rack up kills and get these huge numbers. I don't care about the numbers, and I would love to be known by the number of people I was actually able to save, but I'm out there to ensure the safety of everyone on the streets. I want every one of those guys and girls that go over there with me to be able to come home. And it's not just those guys that I'm protecting. I'm also out there to protect the civilians in that location where I'm at. Some of these open air markets, we were there, excuse me, we were there to be able to provide that security so they could come back out and actually sell their goods without having to worry about someone snatching them off the street or blowing them up. I mean, they were out there ruling in fear by cutting heads off and torturing people, so we're just trying to make it safe. And you can't think of the person that you're shooting as an actual person. I mean, otherwise it's going to tear you apart. You can't think of their family or anything. You're there to provide safety for your guys and the civilians that are out there. And like you said, it's a job. It's a difficult job, and you know, some people, I've seen the comments where have called me a coward for hiding in a location where no one can see me and shooting a guy from a mile away. Well, there's a reason I'm shooting a guy from a mile away, because I wasn't close enough, and there was someone who was close enough that he was fixing to kill. So wherever I can reach out and get you to be able to provide that security, I will do it, or did. So it's unfortunate, but war is hell, and we're not going over there to hand out flowers and cookies. We're being called in because it's hit the fan, and we're there to make it stop.
Context of White Supremacy. Dusty Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, December 26th, 2014. So I have been told. The interview segment you heard at the beginning, Book TV, that was the subject of our brand new book for our book study session. Mr. Chris Kyle, now deceased. He was on Book TV a few years back. He was shot and killed in February of 2013 at a gun range by a suspected racist white veteran. We are starting our new text, American Sniper. Fascinating study of a white killer. I think this really reveals a lot about white pathology. Definitely keep in mind what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing says about the symbolism of the gun in white supremacy culture. This text was released, the film adaptation was released on December 25th, just coming out this weekend, getting a lot of reviews and what have you. Can read some of what people are saying online about the text. That interview, it was about an hour. You heard maybe 5 minutes of it. I thought those were some pretty fascinating responses, particularly about the need to dehumanize those you are at war with. Black people around the world should be able to relate to that. Jamie Foxx had an article in Rolling Out where he was talking about being pulled over by enforcement officers, and they talked to him like he was crazy, talked to him like he was not human. That said, we will go ahead and get started. This is Chris Kyle, American Sniper, Context of White Supremacy.
This is Audible.
Harper Audio presents American Sniper, the autobiography of the most lethal sniper in U.S. military history, by Chris Kyle, with Scott McEwen and Jim DeFelice. Read by John Pruden. Author's note: the things that happened in this book are true, recounted from the best of my memory. We've reconstructed dialogue from memory, which means that it may not be word for word, but the essence of what was said is accurate. During my career, I participated in a number of operations that continue to be classified for national security reasons. They are not included in this account. No classified information was used in the preparation of this book. Many of the people I served with are still active duty SEALs. Others are working in different capacities for the government, protecting our nation. All may be considered enemies by our country's enemies, as am I. Because of that, I have not given their full identities in this book. They know who they are, and I hope they know they have my thanks. C.K. Prologue. Evil in the Crosshairs. Late March 2003, in the area of Nasiriyah, Iraq. I looked through the scope of the sniper rifle, scanning down the road of the tiny Iraqi town. 50 yards away, a woman opened the door of a small house and stepped outside with her child. The rest of the street was deserted. The local Iraqis had gone inside, most of them scared. A few curious souls peeked out from behind curtains, waiting. They could hear the rumble of the approaching American unit. The Marines were flooding up the road, marching north to liberate the country from Saddam Hussein. It was my job to protect them. My platoon had taken over the building earlier in the day, sneaking into position to provide overwatch, prevent the enemy from ambushing the Marines as they came through. It didn't seem like too difficult a task. If anything, I was glad the Marines were on my side. I'd seen the power of their weapons, and I would have hated to have to fight them. The Iraq Army didn't stand a chance, and, in fact, they appeared to have abandoned the area already. The war had started roughly 2 weeks before. My platoon, Charlie, later Cadillac, of SEAL Team 3, helped kick it off during the early morning of March 20. We landed on Al-Faw Peninsula and secured the oil terminal there so Saddam couldn't set it ablaze as he had during the first Gulf War. Now we were tasked to assist the Marines as they marched north toward Baghdad. I was a SEAL, a Navy commando trained in special operations. SEAL stands for Sea, Air, Land, and it pretty much describes the wide ranges of places we operate. In this case, we were far inland, much farther than SEALs traditionally operated, though as the war against terror continued, this would become common. I'd spent nearly 3 years training and learning how to become a warrior. I was ready for this fight, or at least as ready as anyone can be. The rifle I was holding was a .300 Win Mag, a bolt-action precision sniper weapon that belonged to my platoon chief. He'd been covering the street for a while and needed a break. He showed a great deal of confidence in me by choosing me to spot him and take the gun. I was still a new guy, a newbie or rookie in the teams. By SEAL standards, I had yet to be fully tested. I was also not yet trained as a SEAL sniper. I wanted to be one in the worst way, but I had a long way to go. Giving me the rifle that morning was the chief's way of testing me to see if I had the right stuff. We were on the roof of an old rundown building at the edge of a town the Marines were going to pass through. The wind kicked dirt and papers across the battered road below us. The place smelled like a sewer. The stench of Iraq was one thing I'd never get used to. "Marines are coming," said my chief as the building began to shake. "Keep watching." I looked through the scope. The only people who were moving were the woman and maybe a child or two nearby. I watched our troops pull up. 10 young, proud Marines in uniform got out of their vehicles and gathered for a foot patrol. As the Americans organized, the woman took something from beneath her clothes and yanked at it. She'd set a grenade. I didn't realize it at first. "Looks yellow," I told the chief, describing what I saw as he watched himself. "It's yellow. The body—" "She's got a grenade," said the chief. "That's a Chinese grenade." "Shit. Take a shot." "But—" "Shoot. Get the grenade. The Marines." I hesitated. Someone was trying to get the Marines on the radio, but we couldn't reach them. They were coming down the street, headed toward the woman. "Shoot," said the chief. I pushed my finger against the trigger. The bullet leapt out. I shot. The grenade dropped. I fired again as the grenade blew up. It was the first time I'd killed anyone while I was on the sniper rifle, and the first time in Iraq, and the only time I killed anyone other than a male combatant. It was my duty to shoot, and I don't regret it. The woman was already dead. I was just making sure she didn't take any Marines with her. It was clear that not only did she want to kill them, but she didn't care about anybody else nearby who would have been blown up by the grenade or killed in the firefight. Children on the street, people in the houses, maybe her child. She was too blinded by evil to consider them. She just wanted Americans dead, no matter what. My shots saved several Americans, whose lives were clearly worth more than that woman's twisted soul. I can stand before God with a clear conscience about doing my job, but I truly, deeply hated the evil that woman possessed. I hate it to this day. Savage, despicable evil. That's what we were fighting in Iraq. That's why a lot of people, myself included, called the enemy savages. There really was no other way to describe what we encountered there. People ask me all the time, how many people have you killed? My standard response is, does the answer make me less or more of a man? The number is not important to me. I only wish I had killed more. Not for bragging rights, but because I believe the world is a better place without savages out there taking American lives. Everyone I shot in Iraq was trying to harm Americans or Iraqis loyal to the new government. I had a job to do as a SEAL. I killed the enemy, an enemy I saw day in and day out plotting to kill my fellow Americans. I'm haunted by the enemy's successes. They were few, but even a single American life is one too many lost. I don't worry about what other people think of me. It's one of the things I most admired about my dad growing up. He didn't give a hoot what others thought. He was who he was. It's one of the qualities that has kept me most sane. As this book goes to print, I'm still a bit uncomfortable with the idea of publishing my life story. First of all, I've always thought that if you want to know what life as a SEAL is like, you should go get your own trident, earn our medal, the symbol of who we are. Go through our training, make the sacrifices, physical and mental. That's the only way you'll know. Second of all, and more importantly, who cares about my life? I'm no different than anyone else. I happen to have been in some pretty badass situations. People have told me it's interesting. I don't see it. Other people are talking about writing books about my life or about some of the things I've done. I find it strange, but I also feel it's my life and my story, and I guess I better be the one to get it on paper the way it actually happened. Also, there are a lot of people who deserve credit, and if I don't write the story, they may be overlooked. I don't like the idea of that at all. My boys deserve to be praised more than I do. The Navy credits me with more kills as a sniper than any other American service member, past or present. I guess that's true. They go back and forth on what the number is. One week, it's 160, the official number as of this writing, for what that's worth. Then it's way higher. Then it's somewhere in between. If you want a number, ask the Navy. You may even get the truth if you catch them on the right day. People always want a number. Even if the Navy would let me, I'm not going to give one. I'm not a numbers guy. SEALs are silent warriors, and I'm a SEAL down to my soul. If you want the whole story, get a trident. If you want to check me out, ask a SEAL. If you want what I'm comfortable with sharing, and even some stuff I'm reluctant to reveal, keep listening. I've always said that I wasn't the best shot or even the best sniper ever. I'm not denigrating my skills. I certainly worked hard to hone them. I was blessed with some excellent instructors who deserve a lot of credit. And my boys, the fellow SEALs and the Marines and the Army soldiers who fought with me and helped me do my job, were all a critical part of my success. But my high total and my so-called legend have much to do with the fact that I was in the shit a lot. In other words, I had more opportunities than most. I served back-to-back deployments from right before the Iraq War kicked off until the time I got out in 2009. I was lucky enough to be positioned directly in the action. There's another question people ask a lot. Did it bother you killing so many people in Iraq? I tell them, nope. And I mean it. The first time you shoot someone, you get a little nervous. You think, can I really shoot this guy? Is it really okay? But after you kill your enemy, you see it's okay. You say, great. You do it again and again. You do it so the enemy won't kill you or your countrymen. You do it until there's no one left for you to kill. That's what war is. I loved what I did. I still do. If circumstances were different, if my family didn't need me, I'd be back in a heartbeat. I'm not lying or exaggerating to say it was fun. I had the time of my life being a SEAL. People try to put me in a category as a badass, a good old boy, asshole, sniper, SEAL, and probably other categories not appropriate to repeat here. All might be true on any given day. In the end, my story, in Iraq and afterward, is about more than just killing people or even fighting for my country. It's about being a man, and it's about love as well as hate. 1. Bustin' Broncs and other ways of having fun. Just a cowboy at heart. Every story has a beginning. Mine starts in north-central Texas. I grew up in small towns where I learned the importance of family and traditional values like patriotism, self-reliance, and watching out for your family and neighbors. I'm proud to say that I still try to live my life according to those values. I have a strong sense of justice. It's pretty much black and white. I don't see too much gray. I think it's important to protect others. I don't mind hard work. At the same time, I like to have fun. Life's too short not to. I was raised with and still believe in the Christian faith. If I had to order my priorities, they would be God, country, family. There might be some debate on where those last two fall. These days I've come around to believing that family may, under some circumstances, outrank country, but it's a close race. I've always loved guns, always loved hunting, and in a way I guess you could say I've always been a cowboy. I was riding horses from the time I could walk. I wouldn't call myself a true cowboy today because it's been a long time since I've worked a ranch, and I've probably lost a lot of what I had in the saddle. Still, in my heart, if I'm not a SEAL, I'm a cowboy, or should be. Problem is, it's a hard way to make a living when you have a family. I don't remember when I started hunting, but it would have been when I was very young. My family had a deer lease a few miles from our house, and we would hunt every winter. For you Yankees, a deer lease is a property where the owner rents or leases hunting rights out for a certain amount of time. You pay your money, and you get the right to go out and hunt. Y'all probably have different arrangements where you live, but this one is pretty common down here. Besides deer, we'd hunt turkey, doves, quail, whatever was in season. We meant my mom, my dad, and my brother, who's 4 years younger than me. We'd spend the weekends in an old RV trailer. It wasn't very big, but we were a tight little family, and we had a lot of fun. My father worked for Southwestern Bell and AT&T. They split and then came back together over the length of his career. He was a manager, and as he'd get promoted, we'd have to move every few years. So, in a way, I was raised all over Texas. Even though he was successful, my father hated his job. Not the work, really, but what went along with it, the bureaucracy. The fact that he had to work in an office. He really hated having to wear a suit and tie every day. I don't care how much money you get, my dad used to tell me. It's not worth it if you're not happy. That's the most valuable piece of advice he ever gave me. Do what you want in life. To this day, I've tried to follow that philosophy. In a lot of ways, my father was my best friend growing up, but he was able at the same time to combine that with a good dose of fatherly discipline. There was a line, and I never wanted to cross it. I got my share of whoopings, you Yankees will call them spankings, when I deserved it, but not to excess, and never in anger. If my dad was mad, he'd give himself a few minutes to calm down before administering a controlled whooping, followed by a hug. To hear my brother tell it, he and I were at each other's throats most of the time. I don't know if that's true, but we did have our share of tussles. He was younger and smaller than me, but he could give as good as he got, and he'd never give up. He's a tough character, and one of my closest friends to this day. We gave each other hell, but we also had a lot of fun, and always knew we had each other's back. Our high school used to have a statue of a panther in the front lobby. We had a tradition each year where seniors would try and put incoming freshmen on the panther as a hazing ritual. Freshmen naturally resisted. I had graduated when my brother became a freshman, but I came back on his first day of school and offered $100 to anyone who could sit him on that statue. I still have that $100. While I got into a lot of fights, I didn't start most of them. My dad made it clear I'd get a whooping if he found out I started a fight. We were supposed to be above that. Defending myself was a different story. Protecting my brother was even better. If someone tried to pick on him, I'd lay them out. I was the only one allowed to whip him. Somewhere along the way, I started sticking up for younger kids who were getting picked on. I felt I had to look out for them. It became my duty. Maybe it began because I was looking for an excuse to fight without getting into trouble. I think there was more to it than that. I think my father's sense of justice and fair play influenced me more than I knew at the time, and even more than I can say as an adult. But whatever the reason, it sure gave me plenty of opportunities for getting into scrapes. My family had a deep faith in God. My dad was a deacon, and my mom taught Sunday school. I remember a stretch when I was young when we would go to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday evening. Still, we didn't consider ourselves overly religious, just good people who believed in God and were involved in our church. Truth is, back then, I didn't like going a lot of the time. My dad worked hard. I suspect it was in his blood. His father was a Kansas farmer, and those people worked hard. One job was never enough for my dad. He had a feed store for a bit when I was growing up, and we had a pretty modest-sized ranch we all worked to keep going. He's retired now, officially, but you can still find him working for a local veterinarian when he's not tending to things on his small ranch. My mother was also a really hard worker. When my brother and I were old enough to be on our own, she went to work as a counselor at a juvenile detention center. It was a rough job dealing with difficult kids all day long, and eventually she moved on. She's retired now, too, though she keeps herself busy with part-time work and her grandchildren. Ranching helped fill out my school days. My brother and I would have our different chores after school and on the weekends. Feed and look after the horses, ride through the cattle, inspect the fences. Cattle always give you problems. I've been kicked in the leg, kicked in the chest, and yes, kicked where the sun doesn't shine. Never been kicked in the head, though. That might have set me straight. Growing up, I raised steers and heifers for FFA, Future Farmers of America. The name is now officially the National FFA Organization. I loved FFA and spent a lot of time grooming and showing cattle, even though dealing with the animals could be frustrating. I'd get pissed off at them and think I was king of the world. When all else failed, I was known to whack them upside their huge hard heads to knock some sense into them. Twice I broke my hand. Like I said, getting hit in the skull may have set me straight. I kept my head when it came to guns, but I was still passionate about them. Like a lot of boys, my first weapon was a Daisy multi-pump BB rifle. The more you pumped, the more powerful your shot. Later on, I had a CO.W.S-powered revolver that looked like the old 1860 Peacemaker Colt model. I've been partial to Old West firearms ever since, and after getting out of the Navy, I've started collecting some very fine-looking replicas. My favorite is an 1861 Colt Navy revolver replica manufactured on the old lathes. I got my first real rifle when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was a bolt-action 30-06. It was a solid gun. So grown up that it scared me to shoot it first. I came to love that gun, but as I recall, what I really lusted after was my brother's Marlin 30-30. It was lever action, cowboy style. Yes, there was a theme there. Bronco busting. You're not a cowboy until you can break a horse. I started learning when I was in high school. At first, I didn't know a whole heck of a lot. It was just, hop on them and ride them until they quit bucking. Do your best to stay on. I learned much more as I got older, but most of my early education came on the job, or on the horse, so to speak. The horse would do something, and I would do something. Together, we came to an understanding. Probably the most important lesson was patience. I wasn't a patient person by nature. I had to develop that talent working with horses. It would end up being extremely valuable when I became a sniper, and even when I was courting my wife. Unlike cattle, I never found a reason to smack a horse. Ride 'em till I wore 'em out, sure. Stay on 'em till they realized who was boss, absolutely. But hit a horse? Never saw a reason good enough. Horses are smarter than cattle. You can work a horse into cooperating if you give it enough time and patience. I don't know if I exactly had a talent for breaking horses or not, but being around them fed my appetite for all things cowboy. So looking back, it isn't very surprising that I got involved in rodeo competitions while still in school. I played sports in high school, baseball and football, but nothing compared with the excitement of the rodeo. Every high school has its different cliques, jocks, nerds, and so on. The crew I was hanging out with were the ropers. We had the boots and jeans, and in general looked and acted like cowboys. I wasn't a real roper. I couldn't have lassoed a calf worth a lick at that point. But that didn't stop me from getting involved in rodeos around age 16. I started out by riding bulls and horses at a small local place where you paid $20 to ride as long as you could stay on. You would have to supply your own gear, spurs, chaps, your rigging. There was nothing fancy about it. You got on and fell off, and got on again. Gradually, I stayed on longer and longer, and finally got to the point where I felt confident enough to enter some small local rodeos. Busting a bull is a little different than taming a horse. They buck forward, but their skin is so loose that when they're going forward, you not only go forward, but you slip side to side, and bulls can really spin. Let me put it this way. Staying on top of a bull is not an easy matter. I rode bulls for about a year without a ton of success. Wising up, I went to horses and ended up trying saddle bronc busting. This is the classic event where you not only have to stay on the horse for 8 seconds, but also do so with style and finesse. For some reason, I did a lot better in this event than the others, and so I kept with it for quite a while, winning my share of belt buckles and more than one fancy saddle. Not that I was a champion, mind you, but I did well enough to spread some prize money around the bar. I also got some attention from the buckle bunnies, rodeo's version of female groupies. It was all good. I enjoyed going from city to city, traveling, partying, and riding. Call it the cowboy lifestyle. I continued riding after I graduated high school in 1992 and started going to college at Tarleton State University in Stephenville, Texas. For those of you who don't know it, Tarleton was founded in 1899 and joined the Texas A&M University system in 1917. They're the third largest non-land grant agriculture university in the country. The school has a reputation for turning out excellent ranch and farm managers as well as agricultural education teachers. At the time, I was interested in becoming a ranch manager. Before enrolling, though, I had given some thought to the military. My mom's dad had been an Army Air Force pilot, and for a while I thought of becoming an aviator. Then I considered becoming a Marine. I wanted to see real action. I liked the idea of fighting. I also heard a bit about special operations and thought about joining Marine Recon, which is the Corps' elite special warfare unit. But my family, Mom especially, wanted me to go to college. Eventually, I saw it their way. I decided I would go to school first, then join the military. Heck, the way I looked at it, doing that meant I could party for a while before getting down to business. I was still doing rodeo and getting fairly good at it. But my career ended abruptly around the end of my freshman year when a bronco flipped over on me in a chute at a competition in Rendon, Texas. The guys watching me couldn't open the chute because of the way the horse came down, so they had to pull him back over on top of me. I still had one foot in the stirrup and was dragged and kicked so hard I lost consciousness. I woke up in a life flight helicopter flying to the hospital. I ended up with pins in my wrists, a dislocated shoulder, broken ribs, and a bruised lung and kidney. Probably the worst part of the recovery was the dang pins. They were actually big screws about a 1/4 inch thick. They stuck out a few inches on either side of my wrist, just like on Frankenstein's monster. They itched and looked strange, but they held my hands together. A few weeks after I was hurt, I decided it was time to call up a girl I'd been wanting to take out. I wasn't about to let the pins get in the way of a good time. We were driving along, and one of the long metal screws kept hitting the signal indicator as I was driving. It pissed me off so bad I ended up breaking it off at the base close to my skin. I don't guess she was too impressed with that. The date ended early. My rodeo career was over, but I continued partying like I was on tour. I ran through my money pretty quickly, and so I started looking for work after school. I found a job in a lumber yard as a delivery guy, dropping off wood and other materials. I was a decent worker, and I guess it showed. One day a fella came in and started talking to me. "I know a guy who owns a ranch, and he's looking for a hired hand," he said. "I wonder if you'd be interested." "Holy hell," I told him, "I'll go out there right now." And so I became a ranch hand, a real cowboy, even though I was still going to school full time. Life as a cowboy. I went to work for David Landrum in Hood County, Texas, and quickly found out I wasn't near as much of a cowboy as I thought I was. David took care of that. He taught me everything about working a ranch, and then some. He was a rough man. He would cuss you up one side and down the other. If you were doing good, he wouldn't say a word. But I ended up really liking the guy. Working on a ranch is heaven. It's a hard life, featuring plenty of hard work, and yet at the same time it's an easy life. You're outside all the time. Most days it's just you and the animals. You don't have to deal with people or offices or any petty bullshit. You just do your job. David's spread ran 10,000 acres. It was a real ranch, very old school. We even had a chuck wagon during the spring roundup season. I want to tell you, this was a beautiful place, with gentle hills, a couple of creeks, and open land that made you feel alive every time you looked at it. The heart of the ranch was an old house that had probably been a way station, an inn in Yankee speak back in the 19th century. It was a majestic building with screened porches front and back, nice-sized rooms inside, and a big fireplace that warmed the soul as well as the skin. Of course, because I was a ranch hand, my quarters were a little more primitive. I had what we called a bunkhouse, which was barely big enough for an actual bunk. It might have measured 6 by 12 feet, and my bed took up most of that. There wasn't space for drawers. I had to hang all my clothes, including my underwear, on a pole. The walls weren't insulated. Central Texas can be pretty cold in the winter, and even with the gas stove on high and electric heater right next to the bed, I slept with my clothes on. But the worst thing about it was the fact that there wasn't a proper foundation under the floorboards. I was continually doing battle with raccoons and armadillos who'd burrow in right under my bed. Those raccoons were ornery and audacious. I must have shot 20 of them before they finally got the message that they weren't welcome under my house. I started out riding the tractors, planting wheat for the cattle in the wintertime. I moved on to slough and feed to the cattle. Eventually, David determined I was likely to stick around and started giving me more responsibilities. He bumped my salary to $400 a month. After my last class ended around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I'd head over to the ranch. There I'd work until the sun went down, study a bit, then go to bed. First thing in the morning, I'd feed all the horses, then head to class. Summer was the best. I'd be on horseback at 5 o'clock in the morning until 9 at night. Eventually I became the 2-year man, training cut horses and getting them ready for auction. Cutting horses, also called carving horses, sorting horses, whittlers, are trained to help cowboys cut cows from the herd. These working horses are important on a ranch, and a good one can be worth a good amount of money. This is really where I learned about dealing with horses and became much more patient than I had been before. If you lose your temper with a horse, you can ruin it for life. I taught myself to take my time and be gentle with them. Horses are extremely smart. They learn quickly if you do it right. You show them something real small, then stop and do it again. A horse will lick its lips when it's learning. That's what I looked for. You stop the lesson on a good note and pick up the next day. Of course, it took a while to learn all this. Anytime I messed up, my boss would let me know. Right away, he'd cuss me out, tell me I was a worthless piece of shit. But I never got pissed at David. In my mind, I thought, I'm better than that, and I'll show you. As it happens, that's exactly the kind of attitude you need to become a SEAL. No from the Navy. Out there on the range, I had a lot of time and space to think about where I was headed. Studying and classes were not my thing. With my rodeo career ended, I decided that I would quit college, stop ranching, and go back to my original plan, join the military and become a soldier. Since that was what I really wanted to do, there was no sense waiting. And so one day in 1996, I made my way to the recruiters, determined to sign up. This recruiting station was its own mini-mall. The Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force offices were all lined up in a little row. Each one watched as you came in. They were in competition with each other, and not necessarily a friendly competition either. I went to the Marine door first, but they were out to lunch. As I turned around to leave, the Army guy down the hall called over. "Hey," he said, "why don't you come on in here?" No reason not to, I thought, so I did. "What are you interested in doing in the military?" he asked. I told him that I liked the idea of special operations, and that from what I'd heard of Army SF, I thought I'd like to serve in that branch, if I were to join the Army, that is. Special Forces, or SF, is an elite unit in the Army charged with a number of special operations missions. The term Special Forces is sometimes used incorrectly to describe special operation troops in general, but when I use it, I mean the Army unit. At the time, you had to be an E5, a sergeant, before you could be considered for SF. I didn't like the idea of waiting all that time before getting to the good stuff. "You could be a ranger," suggested the recruiter. I didn't know too much about rangers, but what he told me sounded pretty enticing. Jumping out of airplanes, assaulting targets, becoming a small arms expert. He opened my eyes to the possibilities, though he didn't quite close the sale. "I'll think about it," I said, getting up to leave. As I was on my way out, the Navy guy called to me from down the hall. "Hey, you," he said, "come on over here." I walked over. "What were you talking about in there?" he asked. "I was thinking about going into SF, I said, "but you have to be an E5, so we were talking about the Rangers." "Oh, yeah? Heard about the SEALs?" At the time, the SEALs were still relatively unknown. I had heard a little about them, but I didn't know all that much. I think I shrugged. "Why don't you come on in here?" said the sailor. "I'll tell you all about them." He started telling me about BUDS, or Basic Underwater Demolition Scuba Training, which is the preliminary school all SEALs must pass through. Nowadays, there are hundreds of books and movies on SEALs and BUDS. There's even a pretty long entry on our training in Wikipedia. But back then, BUDS was still a bit of a mystery, at least to me. When I heard how hard it was, how the instructors ran you, and how less than 10% of the class would qualify to move on, I was impressed. Just to make it through the training, you had to be one tough motherfucker. I liked that kind of challenge. Then the recruiter started telling me about all the missions SEALs and their predecessors, the UDTs, had completed. UDTs were members of underwater demolition teams, frogmen who scouted enemy beaches and undertook other special warfare assignments beginning in World War II. There were stories about swimming between obstructions on Japanese-held beaches and gruesome fights behind the lines in Vietnam. It was all badass stuff, and when I left there, I wanted to be a SEAL in the worst way. Many recruiters, especially the good ones, have more than a little larceny in them, and this one was no different. When I came back and was about to sign the papers, he told me I had to turn down the sign-in bonus if I wanted to make sure I got the SEAL contract. I did. He was full of it, of course. Having me turn down the bonus made him look pretty good, I'm sure. I don't doubt he's got a great career ahead of him as a used car salesman. The Navy did not promise that I would be a SEAL. I had to earn that privilege. What they did guarantee, though, was that I would have a chance to try out. As far as I was concerned, that was good enough, because there was no way that I was going to fail. The only problem was that I didn't even get a chance to fail. The Navy disqualified me when my physical revealed that I had pins in my arm from the rodeo accident. I tried arguing. I tried pleading. Nothing worked. I even offered to sign a waiver saying that I'd never make the Navy responsible for anything that happened to my arm. They flat out turned me down. And that, I concluded, was the end of my military career. The call. With the military ruled out, I focused on making a career out of ranching and being a cowboy. Since I already had a good job on a ranch, I decided there was really no sense staying in school. I quit, even though I was less than 60 credits shy of graduating. David doubled my pay and gave me more responsibilities. Larger offers eventually lured me to other ranches, though for different reasons I kept coming back to David's ranch. Eventually, just before the winter of 1997-98, I found my way out to Colorado. I took the job sight unseen, which turned out to be a big mistake. My thinking was, I'd been spending all my time in the Texas flatlands, and a move to the mountains would be a welcome change of scenery. Wouldn't you know it, I got a job at a ranch in the only part of Colorado flatter than Texas, and a good deal colder. It wasn't long before I called up David and asked if he needed some help. "Come on back," he told me. I started to pack, but I didn't get very far. Before I finished making arrangements to move, I got a phone call from a Navy recruiter. "Are you still interested in being a SEAL?" he asked. "Why?" "We want you," said the recruiter. "Even with the pins in my arm?" "Don't worry about that." I didn't. I started working on the arrangements right away. 2. Jackhammered. Welcome to Buds. "Drop! 100 push-ups, now!" 220-some bodies hit the asphalt and started pumping. We were all in camis, camouflage BDUs or battle dress uniforms, with freshly painted green helmets. It was the start of Buds training. We were bold, excited, and nervous as hell. We were about to get beat down, and we were loving it. The instructor didn't even bother to come out of his office inside the building a short distance away. His deep voice, slightly sadistic, carried easily out the hall into the courtyard where we were gathered. "More push-ups! Give me 40! 40! My arms hadn't quite started to burn yet when I heard a strange hissing noise. I glanced up to see what was going on. I was rewarded with a blast of water in my face. Some of the other instructors had appeared and were working us over with fire hoses. Anyone stupid enough to look up got hosed. Welcome to Buds. Flutter kicks, go! Buds stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL, and it is the introductory course that all candidates must pass to become SEALs. It's currently given at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. It starts with INDOC, or indoctrination, which is designed to introduce candidates to what will be required. 3 phases follow: physical training, diving, land warfare. There have been a number of stories and documentaries over the years about Buds and how tough it is. Pretty much everything they've said on that score is true, or at least mostly true. The Navy and the instructors tone it down a bit for national consumption on TV reality shows and other broadcasts. Still, even the watered-down version is true enough. Essentially, the instructors beat you down, then beat you down some more. When that's done, they kick your ass and beat what's left down again. You get the idea. I loved it, hated it, loathed it, cursed it, but loved it. Lame and lamer. It had taken me the better part of a year to reach that point. I joined the Navy and reported for basic training in February 1999. Boot camp was pretty lame. I remember calling my dad at one point and saying that basic was easy compared to ranch work. That wasn't a good thing. I joined the Navy to be a SEAL and challenge myself. Instead, I got fat and out of shape. You see, boot camp is designed to prepare you to sit on a ship. They teach you a lot about the Navy, which is fine, but I wanted something more like the Marines' basic training, a physical challenge. My brother went into the Marines and came out of boot camp tough and in top condition. I came out and probably would have flunked BUD/S if I'd gone straight in. They have since changed the procedure. There's now a separate BUD/S boot camp with more emphasis on getting and staying in shape. Lasting over a half year, BUD/S is extremely demanding physically and mentally. As I mentioned earlier, the dropout rate can top 90%. The most notorious part of BUD/S is Hell Week, 132 hours straight of exercise and physical activity. A few of the routines have changed and tested over the years, and I imagine they will continue to evolve. Hell Week has pretty much remained the most demanding physical test and probably will continue to be one of the high points or low points, depending on your perspective. When I was in, Hell Week came at the end of first phase, but more about that later. Fortunately, I didn't go directly to BUD/S. I had other training to get through first, and a shortage of instructors in the BUD/S classes would keep me and many others from being abused for quite a while. According to Navy regs, I had to choose a specialty, or military occupation specialty, or MOS as it is known in the service, in case I didn't make it through BUD/S and qualify for the SEALs. I chose intelligence. I naively thought I'd end up like James Bond. Have your little laugh. But it was during that training that I started working out more seriously. I spent 3 months learning the basics of the Navy's intelligence specialties and, more importantly, getting my body into better shape. It happened that I saw a bunch of real SEALs on the base, and they inspired me to work out. I would go to the gym and hit every vital part of my body: legs, chest, triceps, biceps, etc. I also started running 3 times a week, from 4 to 8 miles a day, jumping up 2 miles every session. I hated running, but I was beginning to develop the right mindset. Do whatever it takes. This was also where I learned how to swim, or at least how to swim better. The part of Texas I'm from is far from the water. Among other things, I had to master the side stroke, a critical stroke for a SEAL. When Intel school ended, I was rounding into shape, but probably still not quite ready for BUD/S. Though I didn't think so at the time, I was lucky that there was a shortage of instructors for BUD/S, which caused a backlog of students. The Navy decided to assign me to help the SEAL detailers for a few weeks until there was an opening. Detailers are the people in the military who handle various personnel tasks. They're similar to human resources people in large corporations. I'd work about half a day with them, either from 8 to noon or noon to 4. When I wasn't working, I trained up with other SEAL candidates. We'd do PT, or physical training, what old-school gym teachers call calisthenics, for 2 hours. You know the drill: crunches, push-ups, squats. We stayed away from weight work. The idea was that you didn't want to get muscle-bound. You wanted to be strong, but have maximum flexibility. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'd do exhaustion swim. Swim until you sink, basically. Fridays were long runs of 10 and 12 miles. Tough, but in BUD/S, you were expected to run a half marathon. My parents remember having a conversation with me around this time. I was trying to prepare them for what might lie ahead. They didn't know that much about SEALs. Probably a good thing. Someone had mentioned that my identity might be erased from official records. When I told them, I could see them grimace a little. I asked if they were okay with it. Not that they would really have a choice, I suppose. "It's okay," insisted my dad. My mom took it silently. They were both more than a little concerned, but they tried to hide it and never said anything to discourage me from going ahead. Finally, after 6 months or so of waiting, working out, and waiting some more, my orders came through. Report to BUD/S.
Context of White Supremacy. We will be picking up, we're on page, or at least for me, page 52. Page 52, under the subheading, Getting My Ass Kicked. Page 52. If folks would like to participate, the number to dial is 760 569 7676. The code is 564943 pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. The number again is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943 pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. For folks who do not want to use their phone to dial in, you can use the free flash phone. Should work anywhere around the world. It's linked on the Black Talk Radio Network page. If you're not there, the address is tiny, TINY.cc/1 race, and that is the number 1. That address again, tiny, TINY.cc/1 race, and that is the number 1. When you enter that address, look on the left side of the page. You should see a link that says free flash phone. Click that link. It will open a small window on your screen. On the top line, it is a drop-down menu. Select the number that I just gave out, which again is 760-569-7676. Next line, it will ask for the code. That code again is 564-943. When you get that done, the last line will ask for a name. You can click random keys. You can put in a nickname. If you're comfortable with your real name, that's fine too. Once you get all that filled out, just click the green button at the bottom. It will connect you to the program. You should be able to hear us live. It is the same procedure. If you would like to participate, you will see the dial pad on your screen. Press star 6. You will hear the audio prompt to press the number 1. That'll get your hand up, and we'll be able to get you on the line. All I will say is that this text, they had a limited theatrical release yesterday. I think New York, LA, and I think Texas as well had a release, and apparently it set a new record, this film, American Sniper, for limited release Christmas Day films. That right there, in my opinion, says a lot about the system of racism, white supremacy, white culture, white pathology, and the worship of death, particularly killing non-white people. Anywho, we'll hit folks that dialed in if they have anything they would like to share. Everyone who has a hand up, your line should be open.
Greetings, guys.
I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. I heard the male caller. I'm just hearing no speakerphone. Yeah, okay. Right on. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, this is Klondike Mike calling from Toronto, and well, I just listened to the archives of the mummies, zombies, and vampires yesterday night. And I think it's quite fitting that you would have this as the book club, the next book club. Very interesting stuff. But I just had a couple small observations. One of them being the young age at which this man and possibly other suspected racists are growing up with a relationship towards their guns. So he, at a very young age, had a gun. It was his first gun. That's what he called it. So it sounds like almost like a tradition for certain types of people. And I wanted to just mention the language he used to describe his guns. Like one thing that stuck out was he was talking about the gun that he had currently, but he said the gun that he really lusted for was the one his brother had. It was a pump action or something like that. I remember once, Gus, you had a guest on the show, and she was from England or the UK or something. She had, she had a really soft British accent. And at one point in the show, she had talked about how she basically blatantly lied to you and to us, and she said she was blind. I don't know if I have that correctly. I don't know if do you remember that at all? Or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so she said she was blind, and it was kind of perfect. She kind of that was like the straw. That was kind of like the most obvious example of her practicing, racism, or at least, just being completely dishonest. And one thing that I took away from that show was that how we were taught these associations and we're taught different things about different types of language and different types of language, like speaking patterns, and so tones and the way that you speak, and we grow up learning different things about each type of language. So the thing that I noticed was that she said everything, even her blatant lie, that British woman that you had that one day, she said everything with such a, I hate to use the word, but this is the way I perceived it, right, because of my upbringing, but it's such a nice, quote-unquote, British accent, right? Everything she says comes across as so, she comes across as an expert, because that's the accent that we associate with, expertise and, civilization or whatever, even though, these are just emotional connections we have to these speech patterns based off of our education, through the media and everything like that. Our miseducation is what I mean. Anyways, the reason I bring that up is because I think we get a similar association with certain types of Southern drawls, and I could be wrong. Forgive me. I grew up in Canada, but it's when you hear the Southern speech, certain types of Southern speech, I think are my association, because of my miseducation, and I think this is what we're being taught, and I could be wrong, is that it's a wholesome way of speaking. He's a good old boy. Everything's wholesome about the way he speaks, and he could be describing horrific acts, but he's speaking in a wholesome way. So I don't know. I just the reason I thought about that was because he broke his signal thing on the car when he was at a date with a woman, and the way he described it made it sound so innocent or whatever. She was not impressed, he said, but I imagine that he says in this Southern everything's okay kind of way. But I imagine you probably, if you're thinking about it, you're on a date, and the guy gets frustrated so easily that he either broke the turn signal thing, I don't know what he broke off the car, but he had, obviously he had, a rageful outburst, he just, couldn't control himself, and I just, it's funny because, he's talking about it in this, good old way, but really, he probably is just a regular, very regular, average person, especially at that moment in his life where he's breaking off, turn signals. And he may have even been aggressive, misogynistic, who knows, any of those things that are usually associated with other types of people, black people in particular. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to mute my line.
Right on. Appreciate the insight. All of the other folks, if you all have things to share, feel free to chime in as well.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, greetings, Gus. Greetings to the other listeners and callers. I made a few notes also, and one of the notes was the fact that the word seal stood for sea, air, and land. I didn't know that. And that basically, I guess if you go into this field in the military, the main thing that you want to do is to kill other people. And then chances are, knowing our society, you will be killing mostly non-white individuals. So there was a shortage of instructors and also a backlog of candidates to get into this particular training. Also made reference that he had a nickname, the Legend, and words are important. And the word legend would be defined as traditional narrative reflecting a representation of folk belief serving as a reformation of commonly held values of the group to whose tradition it belongs. So, as a sniper or killer, we know what group he belongs to. So, they made reference to how many people he had killed, and he said that the Navy's official count was 160, but the records have stated that it was more than 255 people that he had killed altogether. He wouldn't give an exact number, but I believe he made reference to the fact that he enjoyed it and he didn't regret killing anyone. There was references made to savages, so he could objectify the people that he killed. They wouldn't be viewed as humans. He called them evil savages. Mr. Kyle had said that it was great and that he had the time of his life while he was carrying out these missions. Like Klondike Mike referred to, he owned a 30-06 at 7 years old, and a 30-06 is a high-powered deer rifle, which demands quite a bit of expertise in order to learn to shoot and to kill. But it just goes to show that these suspected racists start learning to kill early, whereas most non-white children have toy guns at this age, and so many black families forbid guns and even toy guns in their homes. Also, he made reference to his mother. Now, this is a white female that has raised a sniper, a killer. And she had a job working with at-risk kids. Go figure that. He also made reference to Christian belief, but his God allowed him to kill other human beings. This to me sounds like the religion of white supremacy. So, with that, I think I'll mute my line and give someone else a chance. Thanks for taking the call.
Appreciate that, Mr. Demery Ford. The other folks that are with us, if you all have things you would like to share, feel free to chime in.
Greetings,
Can I be heard?
We'll take 404 first. So wonderful to hear from you. Glad to have you back 2 days in a row. Thank you for sharing a bit of your Friday evening.
Gus, you are full of it today. But greetings to you, Gus, and greetings to the other listeners on the line. Mr. Demery Ford, as well as the Klondike Mike. What I take from this, Gus, is reading over this and to tack on to what Mr. Demery Ford was referencing in regards to this individual, how the religion of white supremacy is death, mayhem, and destruction. Because you saw from a very young age how they were trained in killing, going out here. They had the land that they leased in order to go deer hunting, and the whole family, they did it as a family adventure to go out there and kill things. And I'm sure most of it was not for food. It was just for them to kill it, just to practice their killing skills. And it was the mother, the children, and the husband all involved in doing this as a yearly adventure. And indeed, the mention of religion and the fundamentalism of this Christianity and how it absolves them, the God that they worship, it absolves them of all wrongdoing, because as far as they're concerned, whatever they do, and it's mostly being done to non-white people, their God approves of it, and they don't have any guilty conscience, because the way how he talks about it, it was as if though, it was just like, we just went out here and we just had a nice time, went to a movie or whatever, and it's no big deal. I kill these people, I could sleep good at night, I don't get nightmares, and it's no big deal. And the way how he described the woman, the first woman that he said he saw over there with the child and with a grenade, and how he took her out and described her as being evil and necessary evil, and she took her out of her misery and all of the whole thing, how he tried to justify the killing of this person. And he did not even think about it to say, well, you know what? I'm in this woman's country. She has a right to oppose me for invading her country, destroying it, because he said the place smells bad. It smells like death and destruction. But how did it get to smell that bad? It wasn't that bad before the United States and our allies came in and started dropping bombs and killing people and all these rotten bodies dying out there in the middle of the desert without proper burial. That's why it's going to smell all funky. And it wasn't that way before you all came there and invaded their country. So for you to try and justify that she's an evil person because she wants to take herself out and her child out in order to, and take a few Americans with her, why is she evil for doing that? That's what you were thousands of miles away in her country, killing her, and you had no business to be there. So if she defend herself by blowing herself up or doing whatever, then why isn't she justified to doing that? But that is the psychosis of these people, to always think that they're justified in doing whatever they want to do. And one of the first things that he said when they got into Iraq, one of the first things they did is they secured the oil fields. So it shows you where their priorities were. Their priorities were not in life and the preservation of the Iraqi people. It was to preserve the oil wells for the oil companies. That's who they were over there really and truly for, is for the oil companies, and not to bring democracy and liberty to these people who are under a dictatorship of Saddam Hussein, as they like to run in the news. The other thing that kind of touched on me was when, as mentioned, is when he got in the accident with the rodeo, and the horse or whatever fell on top of him when he had to be medevaced for his injury, and he had these bolts in his wrist and all of these injuries that he sustained. And to show how these people are not human, because he described himself, he said he felt like Frankenstein because he had these pins in his wrist to mend the bones, for the bones to join back together and to be mended. He had to put these bolts in his wrist. And how he was so oblivious to pain and everything else, how he was driving with his girlfriend, and one of the pins in his wrist, it kept hitting the turn signal as he was driving, and it became such a nuisance to him that he just broke off the pin that was securing the bone structure in his wrist, and he just kept on driving. And I guess it's just so unnerved the woman. He said that date ended early. I would have ended the date early too, because I would say this is not a human being that I'm sitting next to. This man could actually break off a pin, a surgical pin, out of his wrist, not feel any pain, not act as if though this is something unusual, and he just kept on driving because the pin kept getting in his way of the mechanics of the vehicle. So it shows that you are not dealing with normal people, that you are dealing with a subspecies, a subclass of people that would not feel our pain. They don't relate to us on a humanistic level, and you are not going to be able to reach them because he was at that age. He was a very young man at that time. I'm sure he was nowhere maybe about 19, 20 at the time when this was going on, and that's how he reacted. I've had injuries done to my foot, and I know what it is like to have a broken bone, and it's nothing. I would not want to sit up there and think I'm going to pull the pins out of my foot to say, okay, it's no big deal. I just want to be able to be more mobile. But, and the last thing I wanted to say is the symbology of the seal, because the symbol that the seal gets at the completion of their training, their symbol is a trident, which is a 3-point spear. And in Norse mythology, it is the trident is a symbol for Poseidon, the god of the underwater, or Neptune. That is what that symbol is. So it shows you the mythology with death and what's the Norse god of underwater, and all of that, how it is all mixed in with them, and how they use these symbols. The symbol formation, as Mr. Neely Fuller said in the code book, with the symbols, the language, and how, white people or white supremacists, when they pick these symbols, it's not just something out of the air that they just pick because it looks cute. It has a specific meaning to it when they pick these symbols as a part of their ideology. So I'll pause here and let the other caller get it.
Can I be heard?
Go. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's one part where he says, I have a strong sense of justice, and it's pretty much black and white, and I don't see any much gray area. And then he talks about his father having a sense of justice and fair play. And then he's going to talk about, before he's going to talk about, killing that woman and how cool it was. And then I think, to confuse people, he makes it appear that he cares about the children on the streets. But if it was a child doing such a thing, putting the grenade on the ground, he probably would have said the same thing about the child being a savage and an enemy. And then in one part he says, my shot saved several Americans whose lives were clearly worth more than that woman's twisted soul. I can stand before God with a clear conscience about doing my job. And I just think, his job being a racist white supremacist, I think a lot of white people have that ability to stand before God. And I don't think they think it's ungodly to kill non-white people. And the other callers, when they mentioned about the savages, him referring to the people as savages and the enemies, and having wished he just killed more. And then, he says American life is one too many lost. And I think maybe throughout the whole book, when he says American, he's mostly just talking about, or exclusively just talking about, other white people. Another part he says, seals are silent warriors, and I'm a seal down to my soul. And I just think there's a lot of white people who are seals but not in uniform, because they're very silent in their practice. And then just about his idea of killing the enemy, killing them till you see none of them that's left anymore. And white people have a long history of eradicating people off the face of the earth. And that's all I have to say.
Right on. Anybody who hasn't shared left, who had something else they wanted to get in, any of the other folks who dialed in who hadn't got to share yet?
Hello. everyone. It's Karma. So nice to hear from you again. I don't know. The one thing I like to try and keep in mind on this whole thing is that white people lie about everything all the time. So I find this book so confusing. I don't know what to believe. It's just because I'm thinking if this is a biography about autobiography about a killer, then, I mean, the lies have to be off the chart. But some things did strike me as very true, just like the other caller was saying when he was talking about he had a strong sense of justice, and he got that from his father. But then again, I must admit that I did protect some of the younger kids, probably, so I could fight without getting in trouble. So I think that was probably true. And the thing about, I don't blame us too much. We are who we are. We have a real respect for life, and killing isn't that much of a part of our nature like it is for the albino tribes of Europe. So thinking that, we're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with this gun thing with our 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, I don't even see us ever going near. Whatever solution we have is probably not going to be putting out a bunch of psychopathic murderers. Maybe just a few. But, and then also, I was talking about raccoons last night. I said he probably wiped out that whole raccoon family. That's why they didn't come back anymore. He just wiped them all out, just raccoon genocide. And then, I also look at white people because, they say they love the outdoors so much, but they don't want to mow their own yards. They don't want to build their own homes. They don't want to pave their own roads. They didn't want to raise their own cotton or sugar or sugarcane or anything like that, but they love the outdoors so much. I mean, it's just, I can't figure that out. I really, they pollute everything. They burn it down. They destroy the outdoors. I'm not exactly sure why they need to be outdoors, but there certainly is no love there. And the other thing that I said, he said, I love being around the animals. I think they like being around animals rather than people because animals, I don't know, to us they seem to be dumber. So maybe they have an intense need for that superiority and that domination, and that's why they really, really like to be around animals more so. But I don't think it's like being outside. I don't think it's like, we love outdoor work so much because they seem to avoid it at all cost. Let me see. Oh, yes, around this time when everybody was going off to war, a lot of the police officers felt like in Houston, in Texas, I guess, we figured they're psychopaths anyway. I guess they must have felt like they could do a lot more killing if they joined up, for the military. Because all of a sudden the Houston Chronicle was running ads at that time that you didn't have to have a high school diploma. It was unnecessary to join the Houston Police Department. You didn't have to have an honorable discharge from the military. It was unnecessary. You could join HPD. I think they ran that for like 2 papers and then realized just how damning it was, so they stopped. But around this time, everyone in Texas, these guys are like, they were like, man, instead of hanging around here doing oil well control, we can all go over to Iraq. And we might even kill somebody, too. This will be awesome. They all took off. Every Texan took off at that time. And, my sisters went. But it's just, they said it was pathetic. It was just not even a contest. It was just, it was a turkey shoot. It was just a turkey shoot. Those poor Iraqis, they just, they stopped. They just started doing war games. Just really, literally just playing war games with the Iraqi people because, it was a turkey shoot. So anyway, those are some of the thoughts I had when you were reading, when I was listening to it. I'll mute my line.
1184, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah. This book is it's just a great book in a way. It's real vivid. The way he talks, I agree kind of what the person was saying from Canada, the way the southern way of speaking that those white people have, that's like him. It's like I don't like some type of glorification in it. The way they sound, it's like a form of to me, the European type of arrogance and stuff in that language. That's what I hear in it. But it's just fascinating that this person, you know, the obsession with the animals, breaking horses, riding bulls, you know, wanting to be a cowboy, you know, it's like, look, it's something about them that wants to dominate and control and subdue, like creation, animals. He talks about the land, the guy's ranch, and all the land he had, and all that, you know, and how beautiful it was, and this and that. And like Cam was saying, it's like, oh, the lady was just saying, it's so ambivalent. It's all in language that this man is talking about, because you don't really get like, okay, this person loves creation, like in some type of Zen type of way. You know, it's more like a wanting to possess it type of thing. That's what I get, you know. The idea of it being yours, like, that's what I get, you know. And this person with this giant 10,000-acre ranch and stuff, it's like, that seems to be one of their major obsessions, is like controlling huge amounts of property. And it's only one family that really controls all of this land, like, you know. He was talking about you go to school, you could still be partying, dating girls or whatever, and then he can go and join the forces maybe and then take care of business. That whole concept of business. On the ranch, that was business. That was work. That was creating profit, or so to speak, taking care of business. And then going to the army to take care of business. It was you didn't hear anything about morality, you didn't hear anything about going in there to fight for justice or anything like that. And he spoke about the person that enlists you. He said, you know, these guys had like true animosity towards each other, whether it be the Army, the Navy, or the Marines, and this and that, and they're all like in the same building. That sadistic part about them, and yet they're united in that. Like, he said these people that enlist you, these officers, I guess, he said that they are the good ones, the better ones, I guess, or something to the effect. They all have like larceny in them or something like that. And then saying that, it's like, that's not a big deal. You know, there's no question about representing this type of system. It's all glorified at the end of the day still, you know, and he makes light of all types of things like that in the way he speaks. You know, and there was something, he broke the pin on his arm in his hand that was holding his bones together, you know, which showed the sadisticness about it. Then he said the drill sergeant or whatever was yelling to them with this sadistic voice out of the hallway, and that was normal. Then he talked about they go beat your ass down. I don't know if I should be cut. Beat you down 3 times, and then what's left of you, beat that down, and then what's left of that, and it's like, that's a good thing, because I'm being trained to have this high tolerance for being able to subdue other things in creation. You know what I mean? It's like being trained to be sadistic, and you think these type of people are going over to cultures that are much more refined than that, basically. You know, he talked about the Marines having weapons that was like so super powerful that the Iraqi army and them was fleeing and stuff like that. So if you're being trained to be that fierce and that tolerant for violence and all of that, is it really like a mystery why people would resort to wild means to try to combat you? And I thought about that too. This book is a trip, boy. It just shows you like the high level of violence and domination in these people as a nature. And I just stopped there because I could just ramble on and on. That was like going down a roller coaster listening to all that stuff.
Right on, and appreciate that. Any of the other folks listening in, if you have comments, we have maybe 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more, before we start the second audio segment. So don't wait till the last minute if you have other comments, thoughts you want to get in. I'd say, number one, there are already people who have, white people who have suspicions about the veracity of what is in this book and or what's in the movie. That's something that we'll bring out as we go along. We'll probably be on this book for, I don't know, a month and a half or so. So we should have time to go over that as well. But that's something that folks definitely should keep in mind, whether or not what we are getting is true. And just thinking at what points you think this could be something that is a fabrication and why. And then why this untruth was included in the text. That being said, one of the foremost thoughts that I had, number one, the infamous Mr. Nero, where he says white people kill for fun. That I think is going to be on display for the duration of the text. Might even get that sound clip in from him as we're going through the book study session on this text. The second point, it was raised yesterday. Someone was talking about the propensity for, in terms of white death, white killing, particularly lethal force against non-white people. And I was saying that white people, they memorialize killing non-white people, really death on the whole. That their whole culture of killing animals. But then Karma, she was saying this mythology, this lie that they love being outside and animals and all that. We're talking about people that worldwide, this culture of killing animals and making a trophy of the corpse. And certainly with non-white people, killing non-white people and keeping their body parts and limbs in jars and making a trophy of that, this love of death and killing, I think that is a big part, whether the book is true or not. I think that is a huge aspect of why this is so important, why this book is such a big seller, why they adapted it to a film, just anything that celebrates whites' appetite. I think he used the term in the book, someone pointed that out when he was talking about the gun that his brother had that he really liked. He said that he had a lust for that gun. I mean, you would normally think about someone having some sort of sexual attraction to a male or a female, right, being attracted to the opposite sex. But no, and I've said that, Dr. Welsing, many folks have pointed that out, that for white people, there is some sort of sexual appetite about violence. I think Dr. Curry even brought that up the last two times that he was on the program. He said it just this past Wednesday, and he also said it when he was with us in August, and he was talking about that white group. They killed a black person, or I think it might have even been two black people, and then had an orgy on top of their corpses. This just happened within the last 12 months. But this sort of sexualized violence, I think, for white people, it is a standard aspect of white pathology, and that memorializing and worshiping death of non-white people, that having a notch on your belt. I was trying to get that audio clip where Mr. Fuller talks about that. That is something that is really sick and just psychotic in terms of worshiping death. How many people did you kill? Oh, it was 160, or it could have been more. They even have numbers of 250 of marking. Like, that's something to be proud about. And even though he says at the beginning that, I'd rather talk about how many people I didn't kill and all that, in my opinion, that is a total lie. What's on the cover of the book, it says the most lethal sniper in the U.S. military history. That's what you get in bold face print on the front of the book, that this is bragging about how many people he killed. And if you listen to the interview that he did on Book TV, he talks about another white person that he regarded as a hero who was also a sniper, another white killer. And this guy, he's credited with killing almost 100 people. I think it was like 93 or something. But this notches on the death. Like, I'm proud. I killed him, and I wish I could have killed more. Someone pointed out about the accent of the person who was reading this book, and I think that that was an extremely significant point, because if you listen to the interview with Chris Kyle, the author who is now deceased, but that was him actually talking, that I played at the beginning of the program, he doesn't sound like that. He doesn't sound like the person that's reading this book, in my opinion. You know, folks disagree. If you heard that, if you think he does, that's fine. You can get that in too. But in my opinion, he does not have as strong, as hard of what folks would consider a Southern Texas accent from a typical white person. I think that is added to it so that you get that this is an all-American white guy. You know, this is John Wayne. This is a hero. You know, this is a cowboy. This is, you know, Troy Aikman or whoever, Tony Romo, whoever you associate with being an all-American Johnny football white person who grew up in Texas and is going off to keep us safe and fight for justice and fair play, because he said that in the text. I think that is by design, even though, in my opinion, he doesn't have that accent. We'll get someone with that accent so that we know all of this programming will kick in when somebody hears this book, I think particularly for white people. Also, and even the memorializing death, it was Jacqueline Badalore. I just told someone about her broadcast the first time she was on the program. She lays all this out, where this is consistent. This is a pattern in the system of white supremacy where they will lionize and revere white people and acts of violence, even massive acts of violence and genocide against non-white people right in your face. Even with something like the Texas Rangers, people focus so much on the Redskins, they don't talk about the Texas Rangers and their history of slaughtering non-white people in this area of the world. And now that is a baseball team that, you know, people love and cheer for down in Texas. I thought at the beginning of the text that was so important, them starting with him killing a non-white female. I think Dr. Curry brought that up. When you have a situation, Renisha McBride or Marlene Pinnock, where black females, non-white females in total, are not seen as females, they're not seen as human. That's how you set the stage for what's going to come in American Sniper, this white killer killing a mother, killing a non-white female, and then presenting it as we're justified. And I think that sets the stage for how you're supposed to view these non-white people, quote-unquote Iraqis, as savages, as he said. He says it consistently. They're savages, and they're just so savage acting people, and of course I wish I could have killed more of them. It sets the stage, because if you would normally think that a female would be granted certain privileges, certain safety, certainly we're not going over here to murder children. You know, we're not supposed to be doing that. Maybe you go get the enemy combatants that are males, but we're not going over here killing moms. But if you can present that even the mothers, even the females are running around and they're suicide bombers, and, you know, a Chinese grenade, I thought that was important too, a Chinese grenade going after to kill American soldiers, then all of these people are defective, uncivilized, crazy, and worthy of death. I thought that was just an extremely important way to criminalize and paint as savages every single non-white person in Iraq. This guy's nicknamed, he's nicknamed the Legend, and he's also nicknamed the Devil, which I thought was significant. He reminded me of Chris Stevens. I think he was, his nickname, that was the ambassador that got killed in Libya in 2012. He was nicknamed the Vile Rat. One of these online games that he played or what have you, but they nicknamed Chris Sniper allegedly the Devil of Ramadi. The religion of white supremacy, folks already touched on it. I thought that was supremely important as well. I keep thinking of Tamir Rice as well, where white people, I've heard a good number of white people talking about this gun culture. I think I posted it, the New York Times, they had a big post about, you know, maybe we don't need to have toy guns anymore. And I just thought that is absurd. And they had a picture of John Crawford and Tamir Rice up, because these are both black people that were killed with a BB gun and toy gun. And it's like, man, you worship guns. This guy is talking about being out as a child and having real guns, having a rifle and going out and shooting But when black people are innocently slaughtered, then it's, oh, well, maybe we just need to change and not have any more of these toy guns, as though white people are going to stop taking their young children, white male and female children, to the gun range to train and shoot real weapons with the thought of being able to do this against non-white people at some point. I had a few other points, but I will stop there in case any other folks dialed in that had comments that they wanted to get in as well. Any of the other folks that are listening in have points that they wanted to make sure that they were able to share?
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, just as what the previous caller mentioned about the tone of voice in the narrator of this story, how his voice have this sort of melodious tone to it. So even though he's speaking of all of these evil people who are not as their level of is not as conscious as we are, who have studied racism, white supremacy, you would be lulled into a false sense of, okay, this is just a story, I'm going to enjoy it. This is just, this guy is just doing what he has been trained to do. It's just a job. These people are bad people, and even though it's a woman and child that he just blow away, his first kill, they're going to justify it because she was trying to blow up these soldiers by setting this roadside detonation device. So the tone of voice that they're using is going to lull a lot of people into overlooking the evil that is unfolding before them. And I believe that is why they use his tone of voice, because this individual, Chris Kyle, he don't live too far from where we are out here in Dallas. I believe he lives at a place, I think the place is called Midlothian, and it's about 25 miles outside of here, and it's in a very white, racist. You find a lot of these Christian fundamentalists and all of these John Birch Society people. They live out there. It's Klan country, and it's going towards. It's in Tarrant County, like going towards Mansfield, up in that area, in that back part of North Dallas, out there. So they have a lot of open space where they can do their stuff out there. And you just don't want to be coming through that way, because a lot of times when we drive up towards Waco to go visit our in-laws up that way, sometimes we take the shortcut to come off road and come back through that way. You just don't want to make sure you're coming through there. You have a full tank of gas before you come back through there, because you don't want to be stopping anywhere out in that area in order to gas up. It's not a nice part of Texas for you to be stopping in.
One of the listeners, she wrote in, she said there was a skin metaphor as well when he was talking about his quote-unquote life as a cowboy. And he's talking about being at the fireplace and saying that it warms the soul and the skin, where I've said consistently pay attention to any sort of skin metaphors white people are talking about. I also had jotted down really quick as well where he had the section where he talked about he loved what he did. Where he said, I loved what I did. I still do. If circumstances were different, if my family didn't need me, I'd be back in a heartbeat. I'm not lying or exaggerating to say it was fun. I had the time of my life being a SEAL. And in the paragraph above that, where he's talking about killing, he says, but after you kill your enemy, you see it's okay. You say, great. You do it again and again. You do it so the enemy won't kill you or your countrymen. You do it until there's no one left for you to kill. That's what war is. I think as Carmen said, for me, that I suspect he's telling the truth there. That sounds exactly like the religion of white supremacy, white pathology on display, whether it's raccoons, peoples, buffalo, whatever. Kill and kill and kill and kill and kill and enjoy doing it. As Mr. Nero, white people kill for fun. Any other folks have comments they wanted to get in? the other caller at 9769. Your line should be open as well, 9769. Do you have something you wanted to get in also? You should be with us as well, 9769.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes. Just so far, just from reading the story and following along, it feels like, I'm reading the account of like a glorified hitman. I remember in the beginning, he's talking about how the numbers are important to him and how he'd only wish he'd killed more. And then people would ask him all the time, how many people have you killed? And, his standard response for, like, those questions would be, does that answer make me any, more or less of a man? And then I remember from Dr. Welsing's books, the ISIS papers, and how the white, the gun is symbolic of the white man's penis. And, so that just stuck out for me there. And also at the end of the prologue when he's saying how people try to put him in categories of good old boy, sniper, SEAL, and how, while all that is maybe true, but for him it's about being a man as well as, love as well as hate. So.
Great points. Great points. One of our listeners, she wrote in, she said, I know the author's white supremacist logic of the hard-working white family when he mentioned how his family worked hard, which insinuates that everything white people have, they worked hard for, and if black people have less, it's because we are lazy. I thought that was very important as well. Also thought Dr. Welsing is all over this book. The Bronco busting, I thought that whole segment is Dr. Welsing, where she talked about the significance of the bulls and the running of the bulls and all of that, and even the commentary that Karma had about animals and wanting to be around them. I am sure, whether it's the horses or the buffaloes or whatever, I am sure they do not enjoy that, being caged and just having someone ride you around in the whole nine, that is not fun for them. That, again, just another illustration of, for white people, it is about dominating, subjugating, mastering, showing that I am supreme over these beasts. But all of that I thought was very much relevant to Dr. Welsing's theory as well. Other folks have commentary they want to get in?
I would like to say that as I was watching some of the trailers for the new movie, one of the scenes, he has this individual in the crosshairs, and he's talking on the telephone, and I guess his spotter tells him that he's revealing truth movement, take him out. And he goes, well, I think I'm going to take him out. And so another guy standing next to him saying, then again, he may be just calling his wife at home. And I don't think it even matters to him at that point. I don't know what happens later. I guess you have to see the movie. But I'd like to also mention something about the rifle that he mentioned, the 300 Winchester mag sniper rifle. This particular rifle is, you can actually hit a target up to a mile, 1,600 meters. And if you just think about that, somebody being a half a mile or a mile away, and then they just drop a target, a human target. Those people never knew what hit them. They're dead before they hit the ground because of the type ammo that's used, and even hollow point bullets that leave these enormous holes in the individuals. It's a tremendously horrible type scene, and it's nothing to be taken lightly, because you could just be going through a normal everyday activity and then you just drop to the ground, not knowing whatever happened. And then I'm sure a lot of these individuals were not combatants, and there probably was a lot of mistakes made in those killings. I'll mute my line.
Caller at 6353 should be with us as well.
Yes, sir. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, what I noticed, and I came in sort of late, but I just wanted to point out what I observed in that short period of time, but that he just related to his ease of movement in the world. Oh, I was able to find a job here, and well, I didn't like that, so I decided I'd go here and got a helping hand over there, and then I did some farming, and then I wanted to go to school. I quit school, and then I decided I wanted to do something. I mean, the ease with which white people are able to move through the world and get helping hands here, and, you know, as we struggle for opportunities and a job and struggle for gainful and reliable and dependable employment, but he just didn't seem to have a problem. And then, well, we can't let you into the fields because of this, and then this miracle, oh, we can let you in. And this was my observation. It's just that the ease with which, you know, the stress-free movement in the world of white supremacy. I'll mute my line.
Great observations. The rules do not apply. Racist man, racist woman, racist child. Unless somebody has something real quick, they want to make sure they get in before we get to the next segment. You can get it in like 60 seconds. Everyone's good? Right on. We will get started. I guess I'm supposed to say, a couple listeners actually, they got me copies, multiple copies of this text. If folks need or would like a copy to follow along with, we should be able to hook you up with that. You can drop me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com. But I mean, this is a huge bestseller. So as I said, I don't think you'll have much difficulty in getting your hands on this book. Definitely, this is not one you want to purchase, but I am sure if you want a hardback, they got this at your local library where you'll be able to get your hands on a copy pretty easily, especially now that it's in theaters. But if you need help getting your hands on a copy, you can drop me an email, and I can get you a copy so that you can follow along. We are picking up on page, or for me, it's page 52. It's subtitled "Getting My Ass Kicked." If you had something you want to share and you didn't get it in, just jot it down so you remember, and we will have ample time once the second audio clip concludes. Context of White Supremacy, Chris Kyle, White Killer, American Sniper, audio segment number 2.
I unfolded myself from the back seat of the cab and straightened my dress uniform. Hoisting my bag out of the taxi, I took a deep breath and started up the path to the quarterdeck, the building where I was supposed to report. I was 24 years old, about to live my dream, and get my ass kicked in the process. It was dark, but not particularly late, somewhere past 5 or 6 in the evening. I half expected I'd be jumped as soon as I walked in the door. You hear all these rumors about buds and how tough it is, but you never get the full story. Anticipation makes things worse. I spotted a guy sitting behind a desk. I walked over and introduced myself. He checked me in and got me squared away with the room and the other administrative BS that needed to be handled. All the time I was thinking, this isn't too hard, and I'm going to get attacked any second. Naturally, I had trouble getting to sleep. I kept thinking the instructors were going to burst in and start whipping my ass. I was excited and a little worried at the same time. Morning came without the slightest disturbance. It was only then that I found out I wasn't really in BUDS. Not yet, not officially. I was in what is known as INDOC, or indoctrination. INDOC is meant to prepare you for BUDS. It's kind of like BUDS with training wheels. if SEALs did training wheels. Indoc lasted a month. They did yell at us some, but it was nothing like BUD/S. We spent a bit of time learning the basics of what would be expected of us, like how to run an obstacle course. The idea was that by the time things got serious, we'd have our safety down. We spent a lot of time helping out in small ways as other classes went through the actual training. Indoc was fun. I loved the physical aspect, pushing my body and honing my skills. At the same time, I saw how the candidates were being treated in BUD/S, and I thought, oh shit, I better get serious and work out more. And then, before I knew it, first phase started. Now the training was for real, and my butt was being kicked, regularly, and with a great deal of feeling. Which brings us up to the point where we started this chapter, with me getting hosed in the face while working out. I've been doing PT for months, and yet this was far harder. The funny thing is, even though I knew more or less what was going to happen, I didn't completely understand how difficult it was going to be. Until you actually experience something, you just don't know. At some point that morning, I thought, holy shit, these guys are going to kill me. My arms are going to fall off, and I'm going to disintegrate right into the pavement. Somehow, I kept going. The first time the water hit me, I turned my face away. That earned me a lot of attention. Bad attention. "Don't turn away," shouted the instructor, adding a few choice words relating to my lack of character and ability. "Turn back and take it." So I did. I don't know how many hundreds of push-ups or other exercises we did. I do know that I felt I was going to fail. That drove me. I did not want to fail. I kept facing that fear and coming to the same conclusion every day, sometimes several times. People ask about how tough the exercises were, how many push-ups we had to do, how many sit-ups. To answer the first question, the number was 100 each, but the numbers themselves were almost beside the point. As I recall, everyone could do 100 push-ups or whatever. It was the repetition and constant stress, the abuse that came with the exercises that made BUD/S so tough. I guess it's hard to explain if you haven't lived through it. There's a common misunderstanding that SEALs are all huge guys in top physical condition. That last part is generally true. Every SEAL in the teams is in excellent shape. But SEALs come in all sizes. I was in the area of 6'2" and 175 pounds. Others who would serve with me ranged from 5'7" on up to 6'6". The thing we all had in common wasn't muscle. It was the will to do whatever it takes. Getting through BUD/S and being a SEAL is more about mental toughness than anything else. Being stubborn and refusing to give in is the key to success. Somehow I'd stumbled onto the winning formula. Under the radar. That first week I tried to be as far under the radar as possible. Being noticed was a bad thing. Whether it was during PT or an exercise, or even just standing in line, the least little thing could make you the focus of attention. If you were slouching while in line, they fixed on you right away. If an instructor said to do something, I tried to be the first one to do it. If I did it right, and I sure tried to, they ignored me and went on to someone else. I couldn't completely escape notice. Despite all my exercise, despite all the PT and everything else, I had a lot of trouble with pull-ups. I'm sure you know the routine. You put your arms up on the bar and pull yourself up. Then you lower yourself. Repeat, repeat, repeat. In BUD/S, we had to hang from the bar and wait there until the instructor told us to start. Well, the first time the class set up, he happened to be standing right close to me. "Go," he said. "Ugh," I moaned, pulling myself northward. Big mistake. Right away I got tagged as being weak. I couldn't do all that many pull-ups to begin with, maybe a half dozen, which was actually the requirement. But now, with all the attention, I couldn't just slip by. I had to do perfect pull-ups, and many of them. The instructor singled me out and started making me do more and giving me a lot of extra exercise. It had an effect. Pull-ups became one of my better exercises. I could top 30 without trouble. I didn't end up the best in the class, but I wasn't an embarrassment either. And swimming? All the work I'd done before getting to Buds paid off. Swimming actually became my best exercise. I was one of, if not the fastest swimmers in the class. Again, minimum distances don't really tell the story. To qualify, you have to swim 1,000 yards in the ocean. By the time you're done with Buds, 1,000 yards is nothing. You swim all the time. 2-mile swims were routine. And then there was the time we were taken out in boats and dropped off 7 nautical miles from the beach. "There's one way home, boys," said the instructors. "Start swimming." Meal to meal. Probably everyone who's heard of SEALs has heard of Hell Week. It's 5.5 days of continuous beatdown designed to see if you have the endurance and the will to become the ultimate warrior. Every SEAL has a different Hell Week story. Mine actually begins a day or two before Hell Week, out in the surf on some rocks. A group of us were in an IBS, inflatable boat small, your basic 6-man rubber dinghy, and we had to bring it ashore past those rocks. I was the point man, which meant it was my job to clamber out and hold the IBS tight while everyone else got off and picked it up. Well, just as I was getting set, a huge wave came up in the surf and took the boat and put it down on my foot. It hurt like hell and immediately got numb. I ignored it as much as I could and eventually wrapped it up. Later on, when we were finished for the day, I went with a buddy whose dad happened to be a doctor and had him check it out. He did an x-ray and found it was fractured. Naturally, he wanted to put it in a cast, but I refused to let him. Showing up at Buds with a cast would mean I would have to put my training on hold, and if I did that before Hell Week, I'd have to go back to the very beginning, and no way was I going through everything I'd just been through again. Even during Buds, you're allowed to leave base with permission during your time off, and obviously I didn't go to a Navy doctor to get the foot checked out because he would have sent me back, known as rollback, immediately. The night Hell Week was supposed to start, we were taken to a large room, fed pizza, and treated to a movie marathon. Black Hawk Down, We Were Soldiers, Braveheart. We were all relaxing in a non-relaxing kind of way since we knew Hell Week was about to begin. It was like a party on the Titanic. The movies got us all psyched up, but we knew that iceberg was out there, looming in the dark. Once more, my imagination got me nervous. I knew at some point an instructor was going to burst through that door with an M60 machine gun shooting blanks, and I was going to have to run outside and form up on the grinder, asphalt workout area. But when? Every minute that passed added to the churning in my stomach. I was sitting there saying to myself, God, over and over, very eloquent and deep. I tried to take a nap, but I couldn't sleep. Finally, someone burst in and started shooting. Thank God. I don't think I've ever been so happy to be abused in my life. I ran outside. The instructors were throwing flash crashes and had the hoses going full blast. Flash crashes and flashbang grenades give off an intense flash and make a very loud noise when they explode, but won't injure you. Technically, the terms are applied to different grenades used by the Army and Navy, but we generally use the names interchangeably. I was excited, ready for what some people think is the ultimate test for SEAL trainees. But at the same time, I was thinking, what the hell is going on? Because even though I knew all about Hell Week, or thought I did, never having really experienced it, I really didn't understand it in my bones. We were split up. They sent us to different stations, and we began doing push-ups, flutter kicks, star jumpers. After that, everything ran together. My foot? That was the least of the pain. We swam. We did PT. We took the boats out. Mostly, we just kept moving. One of the guys was so exhausted at one point, he thought a kayak coming to check on us in the boats was a shark and started yelling a warning. It was actually our commander. I'm not sure if he took that as a compliment or not. Before Buds began, someone told me the best way to deal with it is to go meal to meal. Go as hard as you can until you get fed. They feed you every 6 hours, like clockwork. So I focused on that. Salvation was always no further than 5 hours and 59 minutes away. Still, there were several times I thought I wouldn't make it. I was tempted to get up and run over to the bell that would end my torture. If you ring this bell, you're taken in for coffee and a donut. And goodbyes, since ringing the bell, or even standing up and saying, "I quit," means the end of the program for you. Believe it or not, my fractured foot gradually started to feel better as the week went on. Maybe I just became so used to the feeling that it became normal. What I couldn't stand was being cold. Lying out on the beach in the surf, stripped down, freezing my ass off, that was the worst. I'd lock my arms with the guys on either side of me and jackhammer, my body vibrating crazily with the chills. I prayed for someone to pee on me. Everybody did, I'm sure. Urine was about the only warm thing available at that point. If you happen to look out on the surf during a Bud's class and see a bunch of guys huddled together, it's because somebody out there is pissing and everybody's taking advantage of it. If that bell was a little closer, I might have stood up and gone and rung it, gotten my warm coffee and donut, but I didn't. Either I was too stubborn to quit or just too lazy to get up. Take your pick. I had all sorts of motivation to keep me going. I remembered every person who told me I'd flunk out of Bud's. Sticking in was the same as sticking it to them, and seeing all the ships off the coast was another incentive. I asked myself if I wanted to wind up out there. Hell no. Hell Week started on Sunday night. Come about Wednesday, I started feeling I was going to make it. By that point, my main goal was mostly to stay awake. I got about 2 hours of sleep that whole time, and they weren't together. A lot of the beating had gone away, and it was more a mental challenge than anything else. Many instructors say Hell Week is 90% mental, and they're right. You need to show that you have the mental toughness to continue on with the mission even when you're exhausted. That's really what the idea is behind the test. It's definitely an effective way of weeding out guys. I didn't see it at the time, to be honest. In combat, though, I understood. You can't just walk over and ring a bell to go home when you're being fired at. There's no saying, "Give me that cup of coffee and the donut you promised." If you quit, you die, and some of your boys die. My instructors in Buds were always saying things like, "You think this is bad? It's going to suck more once you get to the teams. You'll be colder and more tired once you get there." Lying in the surf, I thought they were full of shit. Little did I know that in a few years, I think Hell Week was a cakewalk. Being cold became my nightmare. I mean that literally. After Hell Week, I would wake up shivering all the time. I could be under all sorts of blankets and still be cold because I was going through it all again in my mind. So many books and videos have been done on Hell Week that I won't waste more of your time describing it. I will say one thing. Going through it is far worse than hearing about it. Rolled back. The week after Hell Week is a brief recovery phase called Walk Week. By then, they've beaten you so bad your body feels permanently bruised and swollen. You wear tennis shoes and don't run. You just fast walk everywhere. It's a concession that doesn't last for very long. After a few days, they start beating the hell out of you again. "Okay, suck it up," the instructors yell. "You're over it." They tell you when you're hurt and when you're not. Having survived Hell Week, I thought I was home free. I traded my white shirt for brown and began part 2 of Bud's, the dive phase. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, I'd gotten an infection. Not long after second phase started, I was in a dive tower, a special training apparatus that simulates a dive. In this particular exercise, I had to practice with the dive bell, making what is called a buoyant ascent, while keeping the pressure in my inner and outer ears equalized. There are a few methods for doing that. One common one is to close your mouth, pinch your nostrils closed, and gently blow through your nose. If you don't or can't clear properly, there will be trouble. I'd been told this, but because of the infection, I couldn't seem to get it. Since I was in Buds and inexperienced, I decided to just suck it up and take a shot. That was the wrong thing to do. I went on down and ended up perforating my eardrum. I had blood coming out of my ears, nose, and eyes when I surfaced. They gave me medical attention on the spot and then sent me to have my ears treated. Because of the medical problems, I was rolled back, assigned to join a later class once I healed. When you roll back, you're in a sort of limbo. Since I had already made it through Hell Week, I didn't have to go all the way back to the start. There's no repeating Hell Week, thank God. I couldn't just lie on my butt until the next class caught up, though. As soon as I was able, I helped the instructors, did daily PT, and ran with the class of white shirts, first phase, as they got their asses busted. One thing to know about me is that I love dipping tobacco. I have since I was a teen. My father caught me with chewing tobacco when I was in high school. He was opposed to it and decided he'd break me of the habit once and for all. So he made me eat an entire can of wintergreen mint-flavored tobacco. To this day, I can't even use wintergreen toothpaste. Other kinds of chew are a different story. These days, Copenhagen is my brand of choice. You're not allowed to have tobacco as a candidate in buds, but being a rollback, I guess I thought I could get away with it. One day I put some Copenhagen in my mouth and joined the formation for a run. I was deep enough in the pack that no one would be paying attention. Or so I thought. Wouldn't you know, but one of the instructors came back and started talking to me. As soon as I answered, he saw I had some dip in my mouth. Draw! I fell out of formation and assumed the push-up position. Where's your can? He demanded. In my sock. Get it. I, of course, had to stay in my push-up position while I did that, so I reached back with one hand and took it out. He opened the can and put it down in front of me. Eat it! Every time I came down from a push-up, I had to take a big bite of Copenhagen and swallow it. I had been dipping from the time I was 15, and I already regularly swallowed my tobacco when I was done, so it wasn't as bad as you might think. It certainly wasn't as bad as my instructor wanted. Maybe if it had been wintergreen, it would have been a different story. It pissed him off that I wasn't throwing up. So he worked me for several hours with all these exercises and such. I did almost puke, not from the Copenhagen, but exhaustion. Finally, he let me be. After that, we got along pretty well. It turned out he was a dipper himself. He and another instructor from Texas took a liking to me toward the end of buds, and I learned a ton from both men as the course went on. A lot of people are surprised to hear that injuries don't necessarily disqualify you from becoming a SEAL, unless they're so serious that they end your Navy career. It makes sense, though, since being a SEAL is more about mental toughness than physical prowess. If you have a psychological fortitude to come back from an injury and complete the program, you stand a decent chance of being a good SEAL. I personally know a SEAL who broke his hip so badly during training that it had to be replaced. He had to sit out for a year and a half, but he made it through buds. You hear guys talking about getting kicked out of buds because they got into a fight with the instructor and beat the crap out of him. They're lying sacks of shit. No one fights with the instructors. You just don't. Believe me, if you did, they'd come together and whip your ass so fast you would never walk again. Marcus. You get close to the people in buds, but you try not to get too close until after Hell Week. That's where the heaviest attrition is. We graduated 24 guys out of our class, less than 10% the number that started. I was one of them. I'd started in class 231, but the rollback meant I graduated with 233. After buds, SEALs go to advanced training, officially known as SQT or SEAL qualifying training. While I was there, I was reunited with a friend of mine I'd met while at buds, Marcus Luttrell. Marcus and I got along right away. It was only natural. We were a couple of Texas boys. And I don't suppose you'll understand that if you're not from Texas. There seems to be a special bond between people from the state. I don't know if it's shared experiences, or maybe it's something in the water, or maybe the beer. Texans tend to get on pretty well with each other, and in this case we formed an instant friendship. Maybe it's not that much of a mystery. After all, we had a lot of experiences in common, from growing up with the love of hunting to joining the Navy to toughing out buds. Marcus had graduated from buds prior to me, then went off to do special advanced training before returning to SQT. Trained as a corpsman, he happened to check me over when I got my first O2 hit while diving. In layman's terms, an O2 hit occurs when too much oxygen enters your bloodstream during a dive. It can be caused by a number of different factors and can be extremely serious. My case was very minor. Diving again. I always say I'm an L, not a SEAL. I'm a land guy. You can keep air and sea for someone else. The day my incident occurred, I was swimming with a lieutenant, and we were determined to get the day's golden fin, an award for the best shit-hot dive of the day. The exercise involved swimming under a ship and planting limpet mines. A limpet mine is a special charge that is placed against the hull of a ship. Generally, it will have a timed charge. We were doing extremely well when suddenly, while I was underneath the hull of the ship, I experienced vertigo, and my brain turned into a vegetable. I managed to grab hold of a pylon and hug it. The lieutenant tried handing me a mine, then tried signaling to me when I wouldn't take it. I stared blankly into the ocean. Finally, my head cleared, and I was able to get out and continue. No golden fin for us that day. By the time I got back to the surface, I was all right, and both Marcus and the instructors cleared me. Though we ended up in different teams, Marcus and I kept in touch as the years went by. It seemed like every time I was coming back from a combat deployment, he was coming in to relieve me. We'd have lunch together and trade informal intel back and forth. Toward the end of SQT, we got orders telling us which SEAL team we were about to join. Even though we had graduated buds, we didn't consider ourselves real SEALs yet. It was only when we joined a team that we would get our tridents, and even then we'd have to prove ourselves first. The SEAL tridents, also known as Budweiser, is a metal device or badge worn by SEALs. Besides Neptune's trident, the symbol includes an eagle and an anchor. At the time, there were 6 teams, meaning 3 choices on each coast, east and west. My top pick was SEAL Team 3, which was based out of Coronado, California. I chose it because that team had seen action in the Middle East and was likely to return. I wanted to get into the heat if I could. I think all of us did. My next 2 choices were for teams based on the East Coast, because I'd been in Virginia, where they are headquartered. I'm not a big fan of Virginia, but I liked it a lot better than California. San Diego, the city near Coronado, has beautiful weather, but Southern California is the land of nuts. I wanted to live somewhere with a little more sanity. I'd been told by the detailer I worked for that he would make sure I got my top choice. I wasn't 100% sure that was going to happen, but at that point, I would have accepted whatever assignment I got, obviously, since I had no real say in the matter. Getting the actual assignment was the opposite of dramatic. They brought us into a big classroom and handed out paper with our orders. I got my top choice, Team 3. Love. Something else happened to me that spring that had an enormous impact, not just on my military career, but on my life. I fell in love. I don't know if you believe in love at first sight. I don't think I did before the night in April of 2001 when I saw Taya standing at a bar in a San Diego club talking with one of my friends. She had a way of making black leather pants look smoking hot and classy. The combination suited me fine. I just joined Team 3. We hadn't started training yet, and I was enjoying what amounted to a week of vacation before getting down to the serious business of becoming a SEAL and earning my place on a team. Taya was working for a pharmaceutical company as a drug rep when we met. Originally from Oregon, she'd gone to college in Wisconsin and moved out to the coast a couple years before we met. My first impression was that she was beautiful, even if she looked pissed off about something. When we started talking, I also found out she was smart and had a good sense of humor. I sensed right away she was someone who could keep up with me. But maybe she should tell the story. Her version sounds better than mine. Taya. I remember the night we met, some of it at least. I wasn't going to go out. This was all during a low spot in my life. My days were spent in a job I didn't like. I was fairly new in town and still looking for some solid female friendships, and I was casually dating guys with not much success. Over the years, I'd had some decent relationships and a couple of bad ones, with a few dates in between. I remember literally praying to God before I met Chris to just send me a nice guy. Nothing else mattered, I thought. I just prayed for someone who was inherently good and nice. A girlfriend called and wanted to go down to San Diego. I was living in Long Island Beach at the time, about 90 miles away. I wasn't going to go, but somehow she talked me into it. We were walking around that night, and we passed a bar named Maloney's. They were blaring Land Down Under by Men at Work. My friend wanted to go in, but they had an outrageous cover charge, something like $10 or $15. I'm not doing that, I told her. Not for a bar that's playing Men at Work. Oh, shut up, my girlfriend said. She paid the cover, and we went in. We were at the bar. I was drinking and irritable. This tall, good-looking guy came over and started talking to me. I'd been talking to one of his friends, who seemed like a jerk. My mood was still pretty bad, though. He had a certain air about him. He told me his name, Chris, and I told him, getting my ass kicked. I unfolded myself on the back seat of the cab, and he told me his name, Chris, and I told him mine. What do you do? I asked. I drive an ice cream truck. You're full of shit, I told him. Obviously you're military. No, he protested. He told me a bunch of other things. SEALs almost never admit to strangers what they'd really do, and Chris had some of the best BS stories ever. One of the better ones was Dolphin Waxer. He claimed that dolphins in captivity needed to be waxed so their skin didn't disintegrate. It's a pretty convincing story if you're a young, naive, and tipsy girl. Fortunately, he didn't try that particular one on me. I hope because he could tell I wouldn't fall for it. He's also convinced girls that he mans an ATM machine, sitting inside and doling out money when people put their cards in. I wasn't really near that naive or drunk for him to try that story. One look at him and I could have told he was military. He was ripped and had short hair and had an accent that said, "Not from here." Finally, he admitted he was in the service. So what do you do in the military? I asked. He said a bunch of other things, and I finally got the truth. I just graduated from BUD/S. I was like, okay, so you're a SEAL. Yeah. I know all about you guys, I told him. You see, my sister had just divorced her husband. My brother-in-law had wanted to be a SEAL. He'd gone through some of the training, and so I knew, or thought I did, what SEALs were all about. So I told Chris, "You're arrogant, self-centered, and glory-seeking," I said. "You lie and think you can do whatever you want." Yes, I was at my charming best. What was intriguing was how he responded. He didn't smirk or get clever or even act offended. He seemed truly puzzled. "Why would you say that?" he asked, very innocently and genuine. I told him about my brother-in-law. "I would lay down my life for my country," he answered. "I was that self-centered. That's the opposite." He was so idealistic and romantic about things like patriotism and serving the country that I couldn't help but believe him. We talked for a while more, then my friend came over and I turned my attention to her. Chris said something like he was going to go home. "Why?" I asked. "Well, you were saying about how you never would date a SEAL or go out with one." "Oh, no, I said I would never marry one. I didn't say I wouldn't go out with one." His face lit up. "In that case," he said, with that sly little smile he has, "I guess I'll get your phone number." He hung around. I hung around. We were still there at last call. As I got up with the crowd to go, I was pushed against him. He was all hard and muscly and smelled good, so I gave him a little kiss on his neck. We went out and he walked us to the parking lot, and I started puking my brains out from all the scotch on the rocks I'd been drinking. How can you not love a girl who loses it the first time you meet? I knew from the start that this was someone I wanted to spend a lot of time with, but at first it was impossible to do that. I called her the morning after we met to make sure she was okay. We talked and laughed a bit. After that, I'd call her and leave messages. She didn't call back. The other guys on the team started ribbing me about it. They were betting about whether she'd ever call me on her own. You see, we talked a few times when she would actually answer the phone, maybe thinking it was someone else. After a while, it was obvious to me that she never initiated. Then something changed. I remember the first time she called me. We were on the East Coast, training. When we were done talking, I ran inside and started jumping on my teammates' beds. I took the call as a sign she was really interested. I was happy to share that fact with all the naysayers. Taya. Cress was always aware of my feelings. He is extremely observant in general, and it is the same with his awareness of my emotions. He doesn't have to say much. A simple question, or easy way of bringing something to light, reveals that he is 100% aware of my feelings. He doesn't necessarily enjoy talking about feelings, but he has a sense of when it is appropriate or necessary to bring things out that I may have been intent on keeping in. I noticed it early on in our relationship. We would be talking on the phone, and he was very caring. We are in many ways opposites. Still, we seemed to click. One day on the phone, he was asking what I thought made us compatible. I decided to tell him some of the things that drew me to him. I think you're a really good guy, I told him. Really nice and sensitive. Sensitive? He was shocked and sounded offended. What do you mean? You don't know what sensitive means? You mean like I go around crying at movies and stuff? I laughed. I explained that I meant that he seemed to pick up on how I was feeling, sometimes before I did, and he let me express that emotion, and importantly, gave me space. I don't think that's the image most people have of SEALs, but it was and is accurate, at least of this one. September 11, 2001. As our relationship got closer and closer, Taya and I started spending more time with each other. Finally, we'd spend nights at each other's apartment, either in Long Beach or San Diego. I woke up one morning to her yelling, Chris, wake up. You've got to see this. I stumbled into the living room. Taya had turned on the television and jacked the volume. I saw smoke pouring out of the World Trade Center in New York. I didn't understand what all was happening. Part of me was still sleeping. Then, as we watched, an airplane flew right into the side of the second tower. Motherfuckers, I muttered. I stared at the screen, angry and confused, not entirely sure it was real. Suddenly, I remembered that I left my cell phone off. I grabbed it and saw I'd missed a bunch of messages. The sum total of them was this: Kyle, get your ass back to base, now. I grabbed Taya's SUV. It had plenty of gas and my truck didn't, and hauled down to base. I don't know exactly how fast I was going. It might have been 3 digits, but it was certainly a high rate of speed. Down around San Juan Capistrano, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a set of red lights flashing. I pulled over. The cop who came up to the truck was pissed. Is there any reason you're going so fast? He demanded. Yes, sir, I told him. I apologize. I'm in the military and I just got recalled. I understand you got to write me a ticket. I know I was in the wrong, but with all due respect, can you just hurry and give me the ticket so I can get back to base? What branch are you in? Motherfucker, I thought. I just told you I have to report. Can't you just give me the damn ticket? But I kept my cool. I'm in the Navy, I told him. What do you do in the Navy? He asked. By now, I was pretty annoyed. I'm a SEAL. He closed his ticket book. I'll take you to the city line, he told me. Go get some fucking payback. He put his lights on and pulled in front of me. We went a bit slower than I'd been going when he nabbed me, but it was still well past the limit. He took me as far as his jurisdiction went, maybe a little farther, then waved me on.
Right on. That's where we will pick up at next week. The subheading is training for me. This is on page 85. The audio was a little distorted. I actually tried to correct that during the middle of the segment, but it still was like the volume was a little too loud, so my apologies for the folks who were listening live. That was a problem for the people listening to the archive. You won't know what I'm talking about because it'll be fine for the folks listening to the archive, but I'm not sure why the audio was significantly high where it was distorting a little bit, but I hope it wasn't too difficult for people to follow along. I just turned my personal volume down, and I was able to still make out what was being said, but it was distorted on my end too. I did try to correct it as best I could, but I failed in those attempts. Anywho, again, we'll be picking up on page 85 next week. Next Friday, segment number 2. The number for folks who would like to chime in to participate, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943-pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Again, that number 760-569-7676. The code 564-943-pound. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. We should have roughly 30 minutes for folks if they would like to chime in, have any commentary they want to make sure that they share. Everybody who is with us from before, your line should be open. I will keep an eye out for folks who, if you dial in, you get a hand up, have something that you want to get in on based on what we heard. But everyone who had a hand up from before, your line should be open. Feel free to participate.
Okay, Gus, and the rest of the callers, I'll be very brief. Am I being heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. One of the first things that stood out to me is the homoeroticism, which I'm sure it's probably still out for everyone else, with their training on the beach, where he said about the urination, how if you see a bunch of guys huddled together on the beach, you must know that someone is urinating and they're trying to get warm with the urine. So it showed once again with these things with white people and urine, feces, the genitalia, and their obsession with it, because there is no way I could be cold, but I don't think there is no way that I want somebody to be peeing on me in order for me to get warm. I hope that would never come down to something like that in my time, that I would look at that as being something as for me to get warm or for somebody to urinate on me. But to move on to the next point that he was making is this thing with them and the chewing tobacco, because I know this is a lot with white men in my office, where they have this thing, the Copenhagen, that's their brand of choice that they use, the dipping snuff or whatever it is that they call it, where they use that stuff. And it's very nasty, because I hate to be around them, where they're always doing all of that spitting. And his thing that he said, with him, with white boys, and I guess it must be something with them, especially the ones who grew up in a country where they have to be dipping that snuff and chewing it. And he said when he went through his training, he had to eat all of that tobacco when they caught him with that in his mouth, and they made him eat it, and he was able to eat it and swallow it. And I can see that's why they have such a high instance of gum cancer, because you have to put that thing in your mouth and it has to rest on your gums. And I don't even want to go because it's very, very nasty. But that is something that kind of stood out to me, that he was able to eat all of that stuff and swallow it without having that gagging reflex for him to be throwing it up when he was forced into doing that. And one of the things that kind of caught me, it shows you the differences we were speaking about with police brutality and everything else that is going on with cops and our interaction with law enforcement. And to see that with him speeding and this cop chasing him, even though he had an emergency to get back to the base, and the way how the cop approached him and how he allowed him to go through all of the different explanations and all of that before he decided, no, I'm not going to write you a ticket. Instead, I'm going to give you an escort and take you to as far as I can take you. And then at the end, tell me, to go kick some ass, because, of course, they were referring to non-white people who was to allege have blown up these buildings. And with us, we have a total different reception, because the minute they approached that car for somebody black or other non-white person, we would have been dragged out at gunpoint. We would have been arrested, because he said he was doing 3 digits in speeding, and that's called reckless endangerment. It would have been a totally different scenario with us before they would have kind of worked out the details to say, okay, you got an emergency, you got called back to the base, and you need to get back over there. By then, you would have already been in the booking room and going through all of that. Your commander would have had to call in order to get you out of that jam. But it just shows you the latitude that whites get when it comes to law enforcement and how they're treated totally different in a situation versus how one of us would have been treated in a similar circumstance. I'll pause here and let the others get in.
Listeners shared this report. This is in the New York article. I'm going to let everybody else go. I just want to get this in because it directly ties to what 404 just shared about the urinating. And Dr. Welsing just spent a lot of time talking about that on her last program. But this is from the New Yorker article in the Crosshairs. I posted it on my Facebook page. This is from June of 2013. And it reads, Kyle, our person we're talking about, Kyle and Rory, had not seen each other during the decade that Kyle was in the Navy, but they picked up where they left off, pulling pranks on each other. Several times, Rory sneaked up Kyle's driveway in the middle of the night and slapped pro-Obama stickers on his truck. Kyle was a fervent Republican. In retaliation, Kyle pasted one on Rory's truck that declared, I love black cock. Last year, at a crawfish boil for Rory's birthday, Kyle zip-tied Rory's wrists and stuffed crawfish, some live, some cooked, down his shorts. Kent Studebaker, Kyle's father-in-law, told me that Kyle had a hearty sense of humor. He was also a good Christian person who was gentle but firm disciplinarian with his kids. In his memoir, Kyle wrote about telling his son to look at him in the eye while they were talking. Studebaker described Kyle as all man and observed that there was a large part of him that he didn't reveal of himself. I thought that was fascinating and relevant as well. I'll mute my line. The other folks, feel free.
And there were two quick points that I have. One is that strange thing I'm finding is I went to look up Chris Kyle's picture because I was listening to a white person describe white people and the different temperaments that white people have. And he was saying that those people with the pheomelanin, the ones I was talking about, not that particular type of albino, they're intensely loyal to their tribe, and they're intensely idealistic, and and they're sort of kind of innocent, even in their killing sprees. But this was a white person describing the different types of white people, and he, just looking at him, he fits that phenotype precisely, that pheomelanin phenotype. Secondly, I'm trying to figure out when did black leather pants become classy. I think the word he used was sexy and classy. And the last thing was that, what was it? Oh, well, he's a liar. He's like, everybody keeps saying, people keep, just like Gus said, people keep mentioning how much of a liar he is. And those people, that phenotype, they're just the best liars ever. And that's all.
Other folks that are with us, you'll have comments you want to make sure you get in?
Well, a couple of points that stood out to me is when he met his girlfriend, and, she got drunk the night that they met. And it didn't seem right because at first, her side of the story, she was saying she was praying that she met a good guy. And then she gets drunk the night she meets the guy. And then it seems shortly after he's over to her house and to her house. I don't know. Some parts of this book is just, I think he's covered a large period of time, very quickly, because I believe he mentioned at one time it was around 1997 or 98, and then we're already up to 2001, when the planes flew into the tower. And also, just like 404 mentioned, the way that the law enforcement officer treated him as opposed to the way a non-white person would have been treated in the same circumstance. And then that part about people from Texas having some type of bond, that's a bunch of, crop, because he must have met whites from Texas, because I know when I was in service, the ones that was from Texas were the same way that they were in Texas, and that was racist and, conniving and deceitful. And then another part was when he met his girlfriend, he started out with lies, and I don't know, and I was wondering by her name if she was another white person or if she was non-white, but I guess that, the way his disposition is, she had to be another white person. But I'll mute my line.
Any of the other folks that are with us, line should be open. Do you have comments you want to get in?
I guess I just wanted to add that I agree with what the other callers were saying about the way that the guy was treated when he was stopped by the police, and and especially at 2000 or what was September 11th, 2001, then they would have been looking out for non-white people probably. But then, also, if you think about the training, the crazy training where you get beat down and stuff, and how he was in a hospital bed for part of it. He had to stagger part of his training, and he's got the connections with the other Texans and stuff like that. And I wonder what it's like for a non-white person trying to do the SEALs training. I wonder what it's like for a black person to do SEALs training. I wonder if it's. I can imagine the terror aspects would definitely be heightened at least. He just fits in so well with the system that he can just fast track his way up to I don't know, up to his position. And they're selling it to people by saying it's the bureaucracy-free lifestyle, where you can get down and get your hands dirty and really make things happen, I guess. As a white supremacist, of course. But there was one more thing I think I noticed, but I can't remember. I can't remember. The leather pants, yeah. I thought that was funny too. Thanks.
Taya is definitely a white person. I'm trying to see if I can get the audio because she's been an invited speaker to the NRA, and she and the white actor, I forgot his name, who are the white actor that's playing her husband in the movie. They've been doing interviews together this week since the film was coming out and all that. But she's definitely a white person. Any of the other folks that are online with us have comments they want to get in?
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. I remember right before Hell Week was supposed to start, they got all the all the the Navy soldiers lined up, and they had a movie marathon with Black Hawk Down, We Were Soldiers, Braveheart. They were fed pizza, and to me, it sounded like some brainwashing that was going on right before they got into Hell Week. And I remember the author saying, the movies got us all psyched up, and it just sounded like it got them all psyched up for killing non-white people. So I just wanted to make that point.
Excellent. We talk about those movies. I thought that was super important as well. That Black Hawk Down. I mean, that is in my opinion, major racism, white supremacy on display in that film. I know Josh Wickett wrote a film review, and it's the same thing. It's exactly like the way that this book begins, where they're in Somalia, and the black people on the continent, they're savages. Like, just kill them all right now, every last one of them. And every time a white person dies, it's like, oh my God, they have to go super slow motion, and it is the most vile, heartbreaking thing in the world when a white person dies. But black, I mean, it can be a dozen of them, 50 of them die. And, it's like him shooting raccoons in the book is the exact same thing. So that does not surprise me at all. And Braveheart, I believe that is Mel Gibson, who has had many instances of making blatantly, explicitly racist comments since that smash hit Braveheart was released. Any other folks with us have comments they wanted to make sure they got in?
Yeah, I found the part about the black leather pants peculiar too. The color being black, the skin of a cow, and he said that she made them sexy and classy. Like that was an irony that you could make black skin classy. Sexy is understood, but the classy part. So I mean, there may be some psychological value in that symbolism right there.
I thought the portion where she gives her synopsis of what she thinks of him at the beginning, I thought that was probably an extremely accurate assessment at the very beginning, where she says, you're arrogant, self-centered, and glory-seeking, and you lie and think you can do whatever you want. I was like, that right there, and she would know. She is a white woman. Bang, that is probably right on the money. Her assessment. And he tries to deflect by saying, oh, I'm willing to, die for my country and all of that. But no, I think she read him correctly. That is what the system of white supremacy is supposed to produce. I also thought that was pretty telling as well. This classy white woman is out vomiting in the parking lot the day that she meets her husband, father of her children. Like that just does not seem classy to me. And I think it kind of goes to that different assessment where the caller that wrote in was talking about how he spends so much time talking about how he's hardworking and he's on this ranch and going to school and doing all of this. So you get the impression, hey, he's not lazy. He's a hard worker and he's willing to sacrifice for his country, where black people are just not portrayed in the same manner. I think it's the same way, where constantly you've heard all this about what they call, again, respectability politics, and you need to pull up your pants and do this and act right and, talk correctly, whereas you can be a white person and get sloppy drunk and be out vomiting in public. I don't know if she was going to drive when she left. That would be, another infraction right there. And you're still thought of as classy, professional, upstanding citizen. That is what the way the system of white supremacy warps our perception, not only of other black people, but of white people, where they're always seen as virtuous and innocent. And nothing could be further from the truth. The homoeroticism, I thought that was huge as well. In addition to what was in the New Yorker article, but the urinating on other people, I just cannot, under any circumstances, imagine how that would be a logical remedy to being cold, where someone else urinating on me, that will help this situation. I mean, that just makes no sense at all. It just, for me, just further reinforces the homoerotic tendencies of whites that has come up repeatedly, and particularly this sort of environment where you've got, it might be exclusively males, this sort of environment where you just have these sorts of tendencies that pop up over and over again. We have about 8 minutes. Folks have anything else that they want to make sure that they get in before we wrap up, if folks have anything else they want to share?
Yes, I was going to add on that it seems kind of apropos that his nickname was the Devil of Ramadi. That was, he said his name was while he was serving over there. So I guess whoever gave him that nickname, it fits the description, because if he's being accounted for 160-some or 50-something kills, that is officially that they're saying that they're going to give him credit for, then you could imagine all of the other kills that's unaccounted for that has not been declassified as of yet that he has under his belt. So it's very appropriate that the same way he was going around killing other people by sniping at them, that he died the same way that someone put a bullet in him and took him out of here. So that seems to be some very good poetic justice. Another thing with these, with the SEAL teams that he has been assigned to, because he said he was on SEAL Team 3, which was out there on the West Coast, because there are a total of 6 different SEAL teams. The odd numbers are on the West Coast, and the even numbers are on the East Coast in Virginia, because a lot of people get played up a lot with SEAL Team 6, the team that supposedly took out bin Laden. And so there are 3 of those, 3 even numbers that are on the West, then on the East Coast, and the 3 odd numbers are out there on the West Coast. And Jesse Ventura, he was a member of that particular SEAL Team 3 that's out there in San Diego. When he was back in his days when he served in Vietnam, he was a SEAL as well. The former governor and, wrestler or whatever it was that he was a SEAL member.
He's going to be coming up in the book. Just stay tuned. That, and I don't know if the lawsuit part of it is, but I'll make sure to have some audio to back that up. But that is, he will be in the book sooner or later. Anything else folks wanted to make sure they get to before we wrap things up?
Well, I forgot to mention earlier that this strikes me as a military recruitment film. So this may be something that the government might be underwriting.
I agree. I thought that as well. This absolutely sounds like a recruitment package. I'm sure the film is. They do that sort of thing all the time. I don't remember. It was a film that came out within the last 2 years, like Attack on L.A. It was like, I think aliens or something were attacking L.A., and I thought that was a lot of racist symbolism too, but it was like the Marines had to come in and save the day and shoot them and kill them all up and all that, and it just felt like total propaganda to get people to enlist to go die and be maimed in the service to white supremacy. This book reads like that totally, and particularly if it's just going to be glorifying him going and killing all of these non-white people, like, hey, you can get trained up, be a tough guy, trained, go around the world and kill non-white people. Like, hey, white people kill for fun, this will be grand. Come be a Navy SEAL, absolutely. Other comments folks want to make sure they get in last few minutes before we wrap things up? Go ahead, 404.
No, what I was going to say that it would make sense that this would be a recruitment film that was sponsored by the defense industry and whatever other the 16 other intelligence agencies in this country, because Hollywood, these things would have to get classification. Some of the things that's being portrayed in the movie, they would have to get clearance through the Department of Defense. They would have to give their okay on it because, as he said, a lot of the missions are still classified. So they would have, I'm sure they had consultants from the different intelligence agencies as well as the Navy who were on site giving them directives as to how it is that the training and all of that is supposed to run. Because Hollywood is controlled by the intelligence as well as the defense industry. Nothing comes out of Hollywood like that movie, The Interview. It is all coordinated through these different agencies. That's how they run their propaganda. And it's going to be a very good recruiting tool if the United States should escalate another war to go into another non-white nation.
1184, did you have something you were trying to get in as well before we close out?
Yeah, I was just wondering what was the exact type of details behind how he got killed?
My understanding, this was February of 2013. He was at a gun range. They alleged that he was involved in all these different projects working with veterans. This is after he was no longer a white killer, Navy SEAL. But they were at a gun range. It was he and I believe 2 other white males. And this white male, who was also a veteran, shot and killed Kyle. It was, I think, another white male was with them as well. He also shot him. But I'm sure there are other I just don't remember all the details from last year. We talked about it with Dr. Rasayan on the program. I think it was like February 2nd. It's very early in February of 2013 when this happened. But there's tons of reports. You can go online where they can get more details about how he allegedly was trying to help this guy, and they had known him, and this was a part of the work that he did in trying to help out veterans who were dealing with whatever PTSD or whatever other problems they were having.
It just shows the pathology of these people, too, you know.
Now that I know more about racism and white supremacy, I don't believe why it went down the way it went down. I don't understand why, but I was in Middle America and got one of those calls that you need to haul ass, and the police pulled me over, and I told them I needed to get going, and I got the impression that they just didn't believe me, and so they followed me while I was hauling ass down the highway, and when I just got to the checkpoint, I said, just take care of the cops behind me. I never saw them again. So I remember smiling about that. They never got past the first checkpoint. But now that I know more about racism and white supremacy, I'm surprised that worked out the way it did.
This was 9/11 when you were trying to get back?
No, it wasn't 9/11. It wasn't related to 9/11. It was just an internal emergency. So, yeah, and I won't say what it was, but yeah, that really shouldn't have worked out the way it did. I don't understand now that I know a little bit more. But it did happen. So.
Lots of questions about the veracity of the text, what have you, that could have been included just for a little extra flavor. Although it wouldn't surprise me, what I know about white supremacy, I have seen situations where white people are allowed to skirt rules and just they're not treated the same way as black people are treated under any situation, emergency or not. But, that's definitely something to keep in mind as we roll. We should be, I think it's going to probably take us about 8 weeks to get through this. Maybe not quite 8 total. Well, yeah, probably about 8 total. I think it's about 600 pages, so probably 8 total weeks to get through. But we'll be picking back up next week. This is definitely one that you can do a lot of research on because, like I said, there are a lot of white people who have written and voiced their suspicions that portions of this are not true. the Jesse Ventura angle, where he filed his, I think, $1.8 million lawsuit that he won, saying that, he had made up things and disparaged his character, and that's still ongoing. A lot of white people are upset with former Governor Ventura for filing this lawsuit, particularly since he won. Supposed to get all this money. His wife, like I said, I'm trying to see if I can get the footage from where she spoke at the NRA. The movie aspect, it's a lot that you can dig. There's been so much written on Chris Kyle, different articles and what have you, so it's definitely something I would encourage folks to research. If you find anything juicy that you think we should, cover or share, you can email it or you can just dial in and share, but there's a lot that you can check out between whenever we finish the book that should add to our understanding of white pathology on this particular text. We will be back tomorrow, compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific. Workplace racism, certainly what happened with the holidays that folks, I know there were a lot of people who emailed and tweeted that they were having difficulties being around other confused family members. If you want to email in and kind of share some of those anecdotes, that would be grand to hear. If people were able to have constructive contact, that would be awesome as well. If you were able to bring up conversation about racism or other constructive items and it went well, awesome. That would be great to hear as well. But we'll be here tomorrow. NYC Resistance will be with us on Sunday to discuss what has been playing out in New York over the past week with these shootings, as well as even before that with the non-indictment of Dan Pantaleo and just what he has observed since things have progressed over the past 3-4 months. Monday, Dennis Norden will be here. He is a black male author. He's been written about racism, white supremacy globally. He spent time in Sweden, and he talks about racism there, and particularly white women functioning as sexual predators, targeting black males in Sweden. Thought it would be grand to hear him. He'll be with us on Monday. We have our end of the year review. That'll be, I guess, next Wednesday, the 31st. So we should be on every day between now and the end of 2014. So stay tuned. If you have confusion, questions, difficulties, drop us an email, untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com. Fundraising for the end of 2014, the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com, listener-supported counter-racist radio. The PayPal button is in the top right corner. If you are not down with PayPal, drop an email and we can get you a physical mailing address if you would like to invest and support the program. Huge thanks to all of the folks who have contributed and kept us on the air for almost 6 years. Hopefully it has been worthy of your time and energy. I will say again, enforcement officials, they are not going to escort you to your residence and tell you to have a great day or go do whatever. They are looking to lock folks up right now, and probably all the way through the beginning of 2015. It would be best under conditions of war. Stay sober. You are making it super easy for a racist man, racist woman, racist child to abuse, terrorize, and take your life. If you get behind the wheel and you are intoxicated, what you can do is codify that, either stay at your residence, coordinate if you're going to be with other people, no white people obviously, but coordinate, get to one spot and stay there. That way you can leave the following day when you are sober, lucid, and clear thinking, so that you can make the best possible choices to preserve your black life. Again, under conditions of war, sobriety would be best. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind and help us to manifest maximum levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Context of White Supremacy. Signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.